Session 1. And the theme is India and Myanmar, perspective from the stakeholders. We have 3 speakers, and for the sake of greater involvement of all the distinguished participants, we will ensure that 15 minutes presentation and then there is good discussion, because all of us want to learn from all of us. Presentations by this panel would touch a variety of issues, including the peace process, connectivity, etc., but cultural specificities, multiple identities, and life. I will, in a couple of minutes, just broadly say a couple of points and then immediately go back to our practice. To my mind, Myanmar finds itself at a critical juncture in its history. The change is ubiquitous and extends to various areas, including social, technological, and economic spheres. Transitional justice in any part of the world is full of challenges. It's not merely difficult. In no other such process you are able to satisfy all the groups. Madam Aung San Suu Kyi herself has admitted that there is a lot of work ahead of her and the country. But the good thing is that, as Mr. Gautam Mukhopadhyay had told us a little while ago, that things have moved, things are by and large on track, and peace remains, national reconciliation remains an important priorities, and this gives us hope. I believe peace is not end of war. Peace is product of justice. And I think that is where the challenge lies. It definitely takes time. Peace definitely takes time. But bringing the key stakeholders by and large itself has been some progress. And that's again very positive. The peacemaking and peace building that Myanmar is currently engaged in is more or less like searching for truth. You know, when you have the authoritarian rule, then the truth is the ultimate truth. So it's a kind of a search for truth. And unless that exercise takes place, where all the stakeholders are brought on board, are really various stakeholders, you will have a problem. That's the challenge. In the post-truth world, so to say, the challenge is multiple, because today there is no single truth. That's another aspect. You have many shades of grey. Of course, I'm not talking about the Trumpian truth. That is, of course, the lies have become the new truth. Not in that sense. As we know, the fate of the 21st century Bangalore conference remains uncertain at this stage. Two key challenges are the question of credibility, lack of trust between the military and the civilian, and particularly the various ethnic components of our society, and the question of credibility. Let me say a few words about connectivity, because this keeps coming up. I believe connectivity is an institution, in the sense that borders become an institution, but border is also a site. The border is an agent, but also an object of security. And you know, when we are talking of border connectivity, border trade, these things are important. Borders both hide and define power. we exclude and include simultaneously. Walls and fences create a sense of fear of the unknown. Today, Trump is talking of erecting 3,000 kilometers long, even more Mexico to his border. At a time when technology and modern instruments have ensured that there are no borders. We have the board is talking about borderless mode and all that. So you have these twin challenges and how do we make it happen? At the same time, you see that how new walls are being erected all over. Couple of other points. Talking of connectivity, it has virtually become a buzzword. I would say from buzzword, it has become a byword. When we discuss connectivity, we must not ignore another fact, that is connectedness. It is connectedness which ensures that we remain connected. And connectedness, when we talk about, we talk of people, institutions. When we talk of border, we must also talk of what could be called bordering. Borders are institutional mechanisms, processes and symbols. But bordering is what happens when the people construct border on a daily basis with the points of view. Through the political institutions, through attitudes, and outcomes. What connects? Who gets connected? How connected this matters? These are the things that we definitely discuss, not just in this session, but also in the conference. The conflict between the two countries, and more so in the case of India and Myanmar, definitely gives us a lot of hope that we have so much in common now. Remember, it is a future that will ultimately ensure that this will continue. Because someone says that life can be understood backwards, but it can only be given forwards. So that is the challenge. Let me finally also make another point that connectivity is not mere bonding, it is reaching. And that's why what is important that borders must not become boundary. Borders must become reach. That is the challenge that not just true of the country, including, I must say, the Myanmar, but also the people, institutions face. So on this note, I would like to end my initial remarks. After every presentation, I may not necessarily come with a additional point for the sake of time. Maybe was then I will sign it up. May I now turn to Dr. Chin Daoping. He is from the Tampadita Institute of Myanmar. All of you know about him, but let me say at this stage how privileged all of us have been to have him with us in a series of programs in Delhi, in Shillong, and here, of course, in this background in Myanmar, because as you know, he is also a political animal. He has been an active fighter in the democratizing process. The UNICEF awarded him a prisoner of conscience, and he has been released. He has been working with various international groups, views and issues. So we are very privileged to have him over 15 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Dr. Roy. And good afternoon. It's really a pleasure for me to be here finally in Aizawl. And especially to be in a university. I always advocate for such events to be found in universities because they are very good resource and reach out to the knowledge and the new generation. And coming to Aizawl yesterday was a very long trip. struck me. The first thing was the distance from the airport to Aizawl was quite a drive. The second was, of course, the location and the beauty of Mizoram University. I was totally unexpected. So I'm running here, and then I will be speaking in not only this session, but the next one too. Because we try to invite some other people from Myanmar, senior people, but they are very busy with the current peace process. So they couldn't come. So I've been asked to speak on 2 sessions. So if I miss out something in the first session, I can speak again in the next. Now, this morning in the inaugural session, my dear friend, Ambassador Norton, he gave an excellent assessment of the current situation in Myanmar. And I'm sure many of you have listened to it. So what I'm going to say will just complement it. So to give you a more complete picture of what is happening. I always enjoy fielding questions and being open about this kind of interaction. So please, if you have any questions at the end of my talk, please feel free to ask. So I'll just go through some visuals to give you a better picture, and then I'll tell you the main message. As you can see, I have chosen a rather provocative title for my presentation. I think you will understand why I have to choose it. So this is Myanmar as it stands, that is in the interest of the title of this seminar, of the conference. This is the ethno-linguistic map of Myanmar. As you can see, it's quite a mosaic. It's a very interesting situation. And we have a large number of political parties, and at least 2/3 of them are ethnic. And this is a more recent map. It shows the main spoken languages of Myanmar. And of course, as you know, just to repeat, we have 8 major ethnic groups. And then administratively, the country is divided into 7 Myanmar regions and 7 ethnic states. But please remember that none of the regions are ethnically homogeneous. I think the state neighboring Mizoram, that is Chin State, is the one that is most homogeneous, but still we have linguistic differences. There are dialects in the north of the state, in the center of the state, and in the south. And arising from that, we have, at last count, 93 political parties, as I've said, 2/3 of them which are ethnic-based. And still even more worrying, there are no less than 110 armed organizations, ranging from just a few dozen people to as many as 20,000 troops. For instance, under the Federalism State Army, which is the biggest one on the borders of China. So this is just a close-up of the previous map. And if you look at the west, you can see how the ethno-linguistic zones and areas overlap. The tri-country junction between Northeast India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. As you know, there many ethnic groups live on both sides of the border. You see a similar situation on the border with China, as you can see, in Chin State, in Northern Shan State, and in China too. Yunnan is a very ethnically diverse province. Now, as you know, the peace process is still ongoing in Myanmar, and after the advent of the new governments in 2015, a year ago, the 21st Century Fund on Peace Conference was inaugurated. They had a first session in August and September. And the next session is going to be next month. We wanted to have a session every 6 months, but it seems that was just too ambitious. A lot of things have emerged since then, including bloody fighting. So we have to be very careful about it. And from our colleagues who are more closely associated with the peace process, who will be listening to them later on, have told me that it's also in the news that the next session is going to be on the 24th of May. This is just a month from now. And there we are told that the system of federalism will be announced. Now, just to go back a little, federalism is a work in progress. It was something that was promised at independence in 47 and 48, and is still not implemented. And it has been one of the causes of this, one of the longest running civil wars in the world, 70 years old. But Mizoram suffered in 20 years. You can imagine, and then you can multiply that, and we've been having that for 70 years. So, the system of federalism will be sort of announced in very broad terms. And there was a time in Myanmar where federalism was a taboo word. It was equated with separatism, like in China now, and you couldn't just talk about it. But about 5 years ago, it came out in the open, and many people are talking about it now. And so, there's, including the impetus in the peace process, there's also an equal, perhaps even stronger impetus towards a federal system. So, we agreed on that, but what form of federalism, and what is the timetable, and how do people agree on that? So this is the biggest thing that we are currently facing right now. You will know that after 2010, or even before that, there's been quite a sizable, what we call it, democracy promotion business in Myanmar. Many Western donors, bilaterals, multilaterals are coming to Myanmar, and they are giving lessons, courses, and study trips on democracy. I've told them that my main worry after 2010 is not so much democracy, it's the federalism that has to come. And if you ask me why, it's the combination of very strident ethno-nationalisms, the reassertion of ethnic identities that have been suppressed for so long, and territorial demands, including demands for new states, and more inter-ethnic conflict. If you look at Myanmar, what you see represented, especially in the Western press, and also elsewhere, is that it's a kind of a tussle or a struggle between the majority of Myanmar, the central government, and the ethnics. But what I'm seeing now, and I warn my ethnic friends, is that there is more and more the distinct possibility of inter-ethnic conflict. It's between the ethnic groups themselves, and because look at the number of armed organizations that we have, and all the demands are being backed up by armed force. And there's already armed conflict, fighting on territorial boundaries, and the acquisition and accession of new territories. Now, this is just a little schema that I've used for peace, building peace in Myanmar and the fact of change. And the top row shows all the different factors that are involved. Political stability, federal system, very important, political institutions, and the role of the military, and the ethnic armed forces, and the external influences. Now, if you study Myanmar, you have to have this, in your framework, that Myanmar would say that we have two states, the constitutional states, we've had two general elections, and then there's also the de facto military states. It's not just a matter of the military having three key portfolios, 25% of the seats in parliament. I mean, the military's reach is more than that, but it doesn't have to be seen in a negative way always. That's what I say. So, on the issues of ethnic diversity, ethno-nationalisms, ethnic demands, federalism, and peace, you have to contend with the two states. One state cannot decide by itself. And so some people think that there's a kind of collusion between a constitutional state and a military state. Now, one of the criticisms now being recently leveled against Aung San Suu Kyi is that she's too close to the military. Well, in a way, it's, like I said, it's a de facto situation, and it's a result of pragmatism. But of course, for someone who has been opposing the state, fervently, ardently, for many years, it sort of looks like a flip-flop. But I just want to let you know about the realities in Myanmar and how they impinge on Myanmar's quest for federalism and on our future. Now, this is the result of the 2015 elections. All the constituencies in Myanmar, the constituencies coincide with the townships, and there are approximately 310 of them. All the constituencies and townships colored in red were won by the National Democracy, and they form the government now. But in two key states, one is in the west, on the Bay of Bengal, that's Rakhine, and on the east, our biggest state, Shan, is very much decidedly mixed. NLD did not get majority. But since according to our constitution, the chief ministers are appointed by the president, all the 14 chief ministers in Myanmar are from the NLD. So that is a kind of an incongruous situation. This morning we're talking about the states in India, especially in the northeast, and all the chief ministers are popularly and elected, but not so in Myanmar. So this could be the seeds of further trouble as we go on. And this is also interesting. I'm sorry it's not translated into English. When the first session of the 21st Century Parliament Peace Conference was convened last August and September, it was a week long, and people were invited. Many of the demands, let's say, of the papers that came from the ethnic side were calls for new states. And when I brought along some academics from abroad to talk to the ethnic audiences, the questions that came up were, well, what do you do with the creation of new states? In India, as you know, I think at independence, India had only about 12 or 15 states. And now you have 30. So it's not a very smooth process, but India can cope with it. Not so in Myanmar, because I just want to point out, I've got only 5 minutes left, the eastern border of Myanmar, that is Shan State, and from the top you can see the Wa autonomous region, and then there's another region that's controlled by the Mongla or the Shan group, and they have very strong armed forces, and you can see the armaments that they have around them, and now they are calling for the creation of new states. And that's the kind of situation where most of the differences and the tensions are between the ethnic groups themselves. The Shans are the biggest state, and it was up till 1956 or 60, they were under a feudal system of government. They were governed by the princely rulers under the Soros. Then they would give up the power. And in other words, the ruling class in Shan State were Shan, but there's a whole list of non-Shan ethnic groups which the Shan rulers govern. Now they have reasserted themselves. They've got very strong armed forces, armed with modern weapons, and they are demanding new states. So this is the kind of conundrum that Myanmar is currently facing. It's not just about federalism. There is the demand for new states, new demands, ethnic assertions, and much, much more. And this shows this picture also in a different dimension. Starting from the north and down to the south, there is a call for at least 6 new states and territories to be created out of the present union. So that is something that many people in Myanmar and elsewhere are still not aware of. And sorry about that, some of the acronyms. This gives a list of all the armed organizations in Myanmar. As I said, there are 110 of them. Now, this I'll be speaking in my next session, which will look at federalism in a more regional context. So, okay, now, if you can ask me, what is the hidden dimension that I have alluded to in my title? As we have learned from 47 onwards, people thought that, okay, the final agreements in 47 constitution, we have made 3 constitutions, are a matter of ethnic aspirations who want a federal system of governance, like we have in India, and the central government would not allow that. And so the people went into accountability. But if you look at, I don't have a topographical map of Myanmar. If you look at the geography of Myanmar, And there are some scholars who say that modern nations are also, I would say, held hostage by the geographies, as well as their histories. So we are also victims of our own geography. You could say that it applies to the subcontinent too. So what I want to say in Myanmar is that it's a kind of a country that is hemmed in by mountains. I call it the mountain rim. And if you have a polity in the center, whether it's a kingdom or a republic or a state, you have to control the mountainous rim around you. It's just a matter of life. It's not about ethnic issues, not about religious issues, although they may be painted in that way. So for anyone who controls Myanmar, it doesn't have to be the Myanmar people. You have to control the mountain rim around you. It also applies for the Himalayas when you talk about India. So why is the central government being so, I would say, regarding this as an overly delicate matter? What's wrong with federalism? I've always had negative feelings, but why are they being so slow about it? Now, the dimension now is one of security. Last year, we thought the peace process was going along fine, but I have been very open with you because I'm kind of China-phobic or Sino-phobic. There are 4 heavily armed ethnic organizations call themselves the Northern Alliance Burma, the Kachin, the Khotan, the Wa, and the Arakkans, who I would say accelerated or increased tempo of armed conflict. Why did they do that? Of course, they have demands for new states and all that. And if you look at it region-wise, our other big neighbor, China, is embarking on a very ambitious, say, initiative known as the 21st Century Economic Belt, Silk Road Economic Belt, 21st Century Maritime Silk Road. Look at that, they call the Belt of the Road. And of course, Myanmar is there. I think the Myanmar government has signed up to the Belt of the Road, but what is happening now? When I get invited to China, I tell my Chinese friends that, okay, you want the Belt of the Road, but in Myanmar, the armed conflict is still going on. If you can't resolve the armed conflict and the factors behind it, you won't get anywhere with your Belt of the Road. So I would say it's a very multi-sided picture at the moment. I have a lot of work just to keep up. But I'd like to say that where federalism and the ethnic question in Myanmar is concerned, we'll think about the security dimension as well. So I will, if you have any further questions, we can continue when I make my presentation in the second session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Excellent presentation. I think given the time constraint, I think you have given us an excellent sense of what is happening, not just the peace process, but also the issues, challenges facing before the country, concerns of various groups. Thank you. Thank you. May I now turn to Dr. David he is Assistant Professor, Department of History, University of Delhi. He has a PhD from Queen's University, and he has been a prolific writer. Primarily, he has been dealing of late with issues of indigenous people, and particularly in the context of the history of politics.
Today, I want to speak on the federalism from a historical perspective. I teach history at the university. And also I'll try to connect this theme with the subject of minority rights in the context of colonial Mizoram. That's what I intend to do. Historically speaking, federalism is one of the most original contribution of America to political theory. Why should we care about this concept? I think the idea originated, there was a huge debate between the so-called federalists and the anti-federalists. America was trying to become still very poor country, very poor country in the 18th century, struggling out of colonial rule by the British. Economically poor, a nation of illegal squatters, which means illegally occupying land. The vision was, is it possible to have a republic of that size? Because historically all republics were very small, usually at the city level, and you call them city-states. And if America could build a republic which is beyond that scale, then it would be the first type of republic in world history. That was the aim. And the first thing they have to fight against was what American historians call faction or factionalism. America has this serious problem of factionalism, more fractious than any nation. It was very diverse. And how do you constitute a union for providing common security? And then there is this idea which was somewhat old, political idea now, but I think still very relevant. Liberty or freedom. To constitute a common union, which means somewhat centralized authority, and try to preserve as much as possible the liberty of the states, or let's say the liberty of the citizens. And no one has been able to balance these two forces of authority and liberty. And the dream of American dream was to have a union which is strong enough to host any foreign invasion, which means national security, but also preserve the old ideals of freedom enjoyed before they become union. And the dream was to have a strong union, but also pursue the pursuit of happiness, which particularly means to become rich and prosperous, in American sense. So economic freedom, personal freedom, political freedom, but trying to build a strong union or a strong republic. And I think the compromise was to get some kind of guarantees from that union, which is going to be the Leviathan, which could also challenge the liberty of states and citizens. A basic minimum guarantee that it would respect basic fundamental rights of citizens, and that is called the Bill of Rights. In India, I think we have this guarantee in our fundamental rights, and the language and some of the ideas are quite similar, because threat to personal freedom or liberty comes, of course, from external enemies which tries to destroy the republic, but also it would come from the state itself sometimes, and also from the society itself. It's very ironical situation. It always happens. And in that context, minority rights become very important. After you build such a strong union, such a strong republic, which has never been attempted beyond the level of city-state, at the national level, And how do you still guarantee minority rights or rights of citizens? I think that the solution was what we call federalism. So it was a novel experiment which combines the strong features of centralized union with the possibility to enjoy the maximum degree of freedom. In the colonial context, I have been doing some archival work in different parts of the world. In Mizoram State Archive, in the British Library, and also in the Welsh National Library. I come across certain documents which seem to be relevant to, historically relevant to some of the issues that we are discussing today. Here I'll talk about minority rights in 1911 Mizoram. In 1911, the Christian community in Mizoram was about 3%, to be precise, 3.1%. And the majority community were followers of the old Southward religion. And there were some documents and petitions where the minority community have certain grievances, where they were asked to attend the communal sacrifices of the old religion. The problem is that when you embrace a new religion, it involves some kind of disengagement with old religion, and then it really matters to the new converts that will that participation in the old communal sacrifice, which is of course for the benefit, the welfare of the entire village. Because in 1911, Mizoram was experiencing maritime famine. It started in 1910 and then it was continued in 1911. And the majority community thought that this is a sacrifice which required 100% participation to make it effective. And the Christian minorities were accused of spoiling, let's say, making the sacrifice ineffective by their non-participation. So certain chiefs began to impose fines on those people who absconded or abstained from communal sacrifice. And the case went to the superintendent of the disciples. It was also discussed in the district committee of the Presbyterian Church. The government was in a dilemma because remission of fines would mean a kind of, it could anger the chiefs who imposed the fines. And the chiefs were, the empire, just had crushed the rebellion of the chiefs a few decades back. And they were always looking out for signs of rebellion by the chiefs. So that security of the empire was certainly very, very important concern. And the minority community, which is just 3%, seems like, from security point of view, very, very, unimportant. At the time, the church, I think, some of the church committee resolutions recommend that, like accepting the fines, and because you have to leave, otherwise you'll be expelled from the village. And that was like adopted by some of the elders, but there were some members who felt strongly that participation or being fined was against their rights of being British subject. That was legally, I think, that they have a strong case. Then religiously, participation in those sacrifices mean, at least for the believers, something that could imperil their spiritual, their soul. So it was very serious issue. And the right not to be fined and not to participate, which was something they feel the government should protect. And the issue of what is private and what is public, the distinction between society and the individual believer, those kind of demarcation never existed in traditional societies. Where do you draw the boundary between society and the individual? Are there some, however narrow it may be, are there some areas of life where neither the state and society could impose certain things? Let's say public sphere, the private sphere. I think that was the issue was about whether the majority wanted to grant this basic area of freedom. And some of these concerns are already covered in the Bill of Rights, or also in the fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution. And it was never an issue, at the time, in olden day, where it was assumed that the society has full control on all areas of life, and there is no separation between religion and politics. In 1911, that became an issue. It has to be solved, and there are people who strongly feel about this issue. So, once you grant the importance of liberty, then it is connected with factionalism. Should you just, concentrate on overcoming factionalism? Because a lot of factionalism seems to come from the concept of liberty. Then what happened to the authority, to the federal authority of the union? What happened to the security of the empire? This certainly is very important. Security of the whole British Empire could be, or the Indian Empire could have been threatened. And then how do you combine with the claims of minorities, which actually advance that there is something called rights, the language of rights. For the first time, deployed by the minorities. Rights, do we get rights from the state, or do we, or where does these rights come from? I think historically, the concept of right is a legacy of the Roman law. And it used to be, the idea of natural rights has been used to defend slavery on several occasions. But in this case, some of the missionaries and some of the Christians use the language of natural rights to defend their rights against the state. So I think conceptually from the historical point of view, this moment seems to be very interesting. And this is the year when the issue of the rights of boys, earlier slaves, cropped up. In the same year, when the Christians were asserting their minority rights in 1911, in the midst of Maotan famine. And I would like to, to conclude a quotation from one of the founding fathers of American Federalism. His name is James Madison, and his contribution to the Federalist paper number 10 is very, very influential in American political thought. Let me read. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire. An element which means food or fuel, without which it instantly expires. But it could not be less fully to abolish liberty, because it nourishes faction. Then it would be to wish the annihilation of air. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing such an interesting element to this discourse on minority rights. I'm sure there will be questions. Final presentation will be by Dr. Nitin Paul. He's teaching at the School of International Affairs. He's Executive Director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies. He has been complete what's in Myanmar, specialized on East Asia, Southeast Asian region. He has been associated with a very important project, Myanmar for Graduate Students, collaborative academic research work being done by Federalism University of as well as University of North.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. As I retire, before I start off with my presentation, I'd like to make a few personal notes. Some friends asked me where I am from and do I miss home. I said to them, in fact, I belong to 3 different countries and I am a global citizen in the sense that I was born in Myanmar and legally I'm an American citizen and I'm married to Indian women. So therefore I belong to 3 different countries. And today I'm going to be touching upon both countries, Myanmar and India, especially in the context of the ethnic conflict and the question of federalism. So the title of my topic is Ethnicity and Conflict in the Context of Manipur in Myanmar. And before I begin with the case study, I would like to look at the theoretical foundation, how the patterns of ethnic conflict has been in the past, according to some scholars. If you look at the work of James Farron and David Lighton, there are 3 common patterns where ethnic conflicts has often started. The first one is primordialism. I think most of us understand, for those of us who are not quite sure about this, it suggests that conflicts between ethnic groups happen because of people's unchanged essential characteristics, such as blood, culture, language. And the second pattern, which often causes ethnic conflict, is instrumentalism, and which says that ethnicity and race as instrumental identities, with community or political leaders make use of it to serve specific purposes as an instrument. And the third cause, which has been widely studied by scholars, is that constructivism, which also causes ethnic conflict around the world, which says that conflicts between 2 ethnic groups are not an eternal condition, and that conflict shift and mutate over time. In other words, ethnic cleavages emerge because of the construction of identities and its reconstruction. Identities in the history has been constructed and reconstructed. These are the 3 common patterns which scholars study the evolution or the causes of ethnic conflict. And I'm going to be talking about federalism as well, but now let's look at the case of Manipur. Of course, my wife is from Manipur, and here Dr. David, she belongs to the same club as Dr. David, my wife, and here some Dr. Janan Tomar is here, he's a professor here in the Political Science Department. Some friends from Manipur are here. I'm glad you would help me after this my presentation if I made some mistake. There are 3 major groups in the case of Manipur: the Meiteis, the Kukis, and the Nagas. Of course, there are others, but I'm going to focus on these 3 groups. Among these 3 groups, the Meiteis are the majority, the Kukis and the Nagas, and I belong to the Kuki group. And in Myanmar, I belong to the Chin group. because Nagas, Kukis, and the Mizos are all under the chain in Myanmar, because there are 53 subgroups in Myanmar. Even the Métis are under the chain group. So there are 3 groups, and if you look at the history, there has been a conflict between the Kukis and the Nagas and the Métis for different reasons. And I find 3 main elements that trigger ethnic conflict in Manipur. The first is identity formation. So if you study the history of Manipur, colonial writers or ethnographers put the Kukis into old Kukis and new Kukis, for example. And they put people who arrived earlier as old Kukis and who arrived later as new Kukis. And there has been quite a lot of disunity among these ethnic groups. They tried, especially after 1956 tribe reorganization, many of them have been classified or regrouped into different tribes, which was not in the case before. They were just under any Kuki groups, and now they become under different tribes. And some of our own people disown or dislike the terminology of Kuki, saying that this is a name imposed by the British. I have to acknowledge that. And also there is one factor, and I'm getting there some, like Dr. Lana, who is here, who know much better than I do, forced assimilation and integration. For example, people who belong to the old Kuki group, most of them, are today recognized as Naga, politically speaking. And when I look at this one, it's more or less because of the work of, as we all know, NSCNI, National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Isaac Nuwa faction. And they were the first and one of the strongest armed group in the region. They were formed in 1980. All the Kuki armed group started around only 1987-88. And they took the advantage of people who were not very, ethnically strong, weak, and they took advantage of those political and resources that were available at the time. And they are either forced or they are convinced. Either way, they become part of the Naga community or the Naga ethnic group. So that's why, if you look at the conflict that happened in the early 1990s, it was mostly between the Kukis, the new Kukis and the old Kukis. So that's why I bring out identity formation as one element that trigger ethnic conflict in Manipur. Right, the second thing is territorial dispute. Again, let me come back to the demand of NSCIM. As you all know, there was an agreement signed between Narendra Modi government and the leadership of NSCIM, and it's still being, quite heated. The framework agreement I'm talking about. And also there is alternative arrangement demand by the majority of the Nagas in Manipur, which means they would like to either have autonomy within the state of Manipur, or they would like to be part of Southern Nagaland or Greater Nagaland. So this also creates a lot of tensions between these different ethnic groups, especially the Métis in the valley. For example, if the demand area, the territorial areas that are demanded by the NSCI are carved out or given out to the Nagas, then Manipur would be just the valley areas. That's a lot of comprehension, suspicion is going on in the minds of the Métis. And for the Kukis as well, what happens, the Kukis also demand what they call Kuki homeland or Zalendam. So they are demanding overlapping areas in the hill areas. So this creates tensions and conflict among the 3 different communities in the state. And the third factor or element that I find the cause of conflict in the state is response of the state. The state meaning the state government and the central government. For example, last year, the Ibobi government, was the Congress government, created 7 new districts in the state. And they were saying that the districts were created for the sake of administrative purpose. But the Nagas came under the leadership of United Naga Council, strongly protested, and they launched the strongest economic blockade in the history of Manipur, saying that the government is trying to divide their ancestral territory. So there was a blockade enforced by the DNC and also counter blockade by the Métis in the valley. And there was violence, burning down vehicles. And also what happens is that, as I said earlier, the framework agreement, which is not openly discussed or revealed, always brings a cause of tension among these 3 groups. The Kukis are also worried that if the framework agreement is officially implemented, even though we do not know the details yet, there is a fear that most of the areas in the hill region might become part of the Naga territory, which means they don't like to be under the Nagas. They want to have their own state, their own administration, like the Nagas and the Métis. And of course, you can also bring the question of inner line permit system. That's a main demand of the Métis in the valley area. They would like to introduce, or they would like to implement this so that not necessarily non-Métis, but let's say outsiders could not come into the state. In other words, this was a policy or a concept that was introduced by the British administration a long time back. And what the fear is that, of course, this has been now enacted because of different reasons. What happened was that there was one clause which states that the people of Manipur should be defined, a cut-off list should be put at 1951. So, if 1951 was the cut-off year, many of the hill people, including the Nagas and the Kukis, would become refugees or become non-Manipuri. So there was a strong sense of anxiety among the Kukis and the Nagas. So please help me more explain later when we have discussion, but I find these 3 main elements as the cause of ethnic tension and conflict in the state of Manipur. And of course, I also find that there are some possible solutions, which is not that guaranteed, but there are possibilities. First one is, which I have written quite often in the Hindu newspaper in the past. The first one is to implement equitable socio-economic development. So if you go and talk to the Nagas and the Kukis, for example, I'm not saying all of them, but many of them would say that we are neglected. The question of federalism is not fully implemented in the case of Manipur. Because they would say that there is more developmental funds are going toward developing the valley areas and not the hill areas per se. So this is one main reason for their grievances in the past. And I thought if we could bring that equitable socio-economic development across the state, that might resolve, or that might, let's say, lessen the tension among these 3 groups. And second thing is that review of political structure. There are 60 members in the current state legislature, and 40 of them belongs to the Métis, the majority, and 20 for the Nagas and the Kukis. At the same time, the chief minister, except with some casing, if I remember correctly, has always been from the majority group. Why not make 25 seats for the hill people in the state assembly, or 30 seats, or even arrangement for a rotational chief minister position. Let's say after 5 years or 10 years, make a chief minister from the Naga community, or let's after 10 years, a chief minister from the Kuki community, so that we can bring all sections of the society into a peaceful political structure. And of course, the other one is implementation of sixth schedule, and Dr. Zhang Fung would be the very person to explain on this. So, implementation of the sixth schedule would, in the hill areas, might also lessen or maybe possibly resolve the anxieties, or let's say the disappointment of the hill people. And basically means that giving more autonomy to the hill people in their area, the resources administration. And finally, a lot of people don't like this point, but I'm going to be openly discussing what is separate administration for the Métis, Kukis, and the Nagas. So I know this is not a very sensitive and was a controversial issue, but if all the above, 1, 2, 3, which I have given, is not successful, maybe one alternative solution could be separate administration for these three groups. Okay, now I'm coming to Myanmar, because I am more of a specialist on Myanmar than Manipur. The difference between Myanmar and Manipur is that my friend Dr. Kinjo Wing said that now the conflict has more toward between inter-ethnic conflict. I mean, that has been it did not start long ago, I would say. Of course, there has been here and there sporadic incidences, but if you look at the history of Myanmar, the main demand or the main discontent is the nullification of 1947 Panglong Agreement, which guaranteed that there should be autonomy for and secession rights for some minority groups. That was not implemented, therefore, the demand for federalism started since 1947. And the main demand in Myanmar, or among ethnic minorities, is equality of rights, equality of rights. And of course, there are other demands such as creation of federal army, and of course, having self-determination in the sense that be able to elect your own chief minister, which is not happening. So if you go and talk to some of the ethnic groups, ethnic minorities, especially those who are in overseas, they would not like to consider themselves as Burmese, which is the common name for the people of Burma or Myanmar. They say we are Karen, for example, we are Kachin, we are Shan, we do not belong to Burmese. So there are some ultra-nationalist groups there as well. But the solution to this problem, or the question of federalism in Myanmar, is that as long as, of course, if I have time, I would like to talk about some of the different types of, for example, symmetric federalism, asymmetric federalism, and also there is dual federalism, cooperative federalism, creative federalism. But whatever the model or the system we try to implement, I think what we should understand for policymakers as well as academics and researchers on Myanmar is that we should try to figure out, because I remember my conversation with the former Prime Minister, General Kim Yuk. He was the one who introduced 7-step roadmap towards democracy. I met him, I had a conversation for about 3 hours, which was unusual for such a big guy to sit down with me and have a conversation. I asked specifically, does Myanmar need a federal government? And he said yes. But he said, we need a federal that suits our needs. So if you look at the history of Burma or Myanmar, during the military regime, military government under Nehru, what he did was he brought in or he introduced socialism, and he called it Burmese way to socialism. So now there is a worry that the military, which is or retains a significant power under the NLD administration, is that there is a worry, a concern that Myanmar is also heading toward a federalism, Burmese way to federalism. So we do not know what that would mean eventually, and of course the discussion is going on. There will be a dialogue coming up soon, the 21st Panglong Agreement for the second round. So I will stop there since my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim, for sticking to the time. Before I invite questions, someone must guide me what time we are supposed to break for lunch. We are a little late. Alana, do you have any idea? What is the latest. Minimum we must have 15-20 minutes. 20 minutes is okay. 20 minutes is because since I'm not going anywhere, so we can spend other sessions also. So, yeah, let's have the questions. Pointed questions, comment is welcome, but short. As Martin Luther King says that fewer the words, better the prayer. So I hope, I think you will be guided by this.
When you're with scholars, that is not what you do. What you try and do is take all the positives from the yesterday, try to link it up with the today so that it will benefit the tomorrow, the next generation. And that's going to be the challenge. As far as India is concerned, we are going through a very interesting time right now, which I believe in a way challenges federalism because of technology, because of also a very strong government at the center. What's the discourse? A few thousand people living in the metros, say Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, are trying to drive the narrative of the country through a simple platform called Twitter or Facebook. It's very interesting. So what's happening in return is that regional voices are being drowned in such a manner that in the national discourse, it doesn't appear. I was in Kashmir for 2 months during the worst times, covering of course, the encounters and also, looking at all the agitation there was. We were getting stone pelted every corner we went to. We were getting cursed. So the reality on the ground is completely different to the reality that the government wants the rest of the country to see, accept, and also the narrative that is run. And we must remember today, I heard a complaint today why Northeast is left behind. All the time I hear this. But that's what's happening because corporatization of mainstream media today is complete. All the big television studios, all the newspapers are now run by big corporations and they have a certain agenda. They look at certain markets. Therefore, the voice of the regions, lesser known, are slowly getting drowned out. There is no effort to reach out, to understand what these locations want. That's why Manipur gets drowned out, Kashmir gets drowned out, Nagaland to a certain extent. What people want to hear is what you get because the social media chatter is run by ultra-nationalists who are in a majority there. So a few thousand people run the discourse. Now that I feel is a threat to federalism where the minority suddenly appears like a majority. The editors in newsrooms are dictated or are forced to follow the chatter on Twitter and run the editorials accordingly. Yeah. So on that opening note, I would like to start with our eminent panelist. Dr. Surya Dungyal is here, senior advocate and visiting professor at the Kathmandu University School of Law. There's a lot to learn from him because of the way they are going around with their constitution, implementing it. A lot to look forward to because they say that they have taken the best from around the world and tried to localize it and make it their own. We also have Dr. Kim Zaw-Win again, director at Tampadipa Institute, Myanmar. I hope you've eaten lunch well because they're working you very hard, yeah? Back to back. Professor J.K. Patnaik, Department of Political Science, Mizoram University, who's on home turf. Yeah? So a lot of expectations from you. The nation will want to know, along with Myanmar and Nepal also. So you better be prepared. Yeah? So I'll now start with Dr. Surya. The floor is yours.
Thank you. One advantage of this afternoon is when we have a dynamic moderator like Dharma anchoring the whole, actually he was anchoring the whole world. Now anchoring this session, I think it will be much, lively. The reason being in the afternoon sessions are mostly the people tend to get sleepy. So his, from his very the opening words, we know very well that they will make it more lively than from the speakers themselves. Okay.
Sir, we also have a camera, so anybody who's sleeping, we will take the video of that person and make it go viral. So try to keep up. Yeah.
Sharing the experience of Nepal. Actually, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And coming to Mizoram was actually this first visit have ever had. And flying in a big bus, air bus and landing there. Although it's not as risky as some of the Nepalese, the air escapes, but still it's quite hilarious. I will first start with Nepal's experience. The Nepal, first thing is federalism in Nepal is a new experiment. As it is designed by Nepalese themselves, although comparative experiences were drawn from many countries, including India. Personally, experts like us were there, several times. So we have picked up, as I said, from that, actually we picked up what we thought would work in Nepal, although still we are running into some problems. This is the 7th constitution, the federal constitution that we drafted. It was promulgated actually on 20th September 2015, already almost 2 years. And has included 5 major changes. It's a radical change that we moved from monarchy to republicanism. More than decades or centuries long unitary state to federal state. We from Hindu state to secularism. From a very pluralistic, diverse state to now we are emphasizing more on inclusivity. So inclusivity, in fact, includes the whole issue of identity and ethnicity also, in this nomenclature. Because we have several places that in the constitution itself, inclusivity repeatedly written. And we have a mixed electoral process. First past the post combined with proportional representation, that also aimed at really including making more participatory presence at the decision-making level. So hence, the implementation of the constitution is a big challenge, as you mentioned. Challenges actually has come partly because of the process and partly because of the content of the constitution also. Process because when the Constituent Assembly adopted this constitution, a section of the population, although it is smaller in the Constituent Assembly, but the majority, they represented majority of the population from the south, we call Malaysia, from the plains, and ethnic groups at various places. So they boycotted because some of their demands were not met. So they wanted to extend the tenure of the Constituent Assembly, the promulgation date for a few weeks, which was denied by larger party, not because they didn't want to compromise, but partly because of their war after seeing power, rather than conceding with the demand. So the game of the political parties to stick to the power was one of the reasons why it took so long. So my presentation will have 4 parts, but I'll try to be very short. First, since I said it's a new experiment, we have a federalism in principle, but not in practice yet. So we have, after the elections of various level of federal institutions, will be really practicing federalism in Nepal. So the first part will be, we are trying a little bit on notion and design. Then I'll come down to the issue of diversity, then one of the major aspects that I did hear, during the discussion I told this morning, the importance of intergovernmental relations in the federal system. Because we have had it so far, because we are still under transitional government, military government. From one government to we are moving 7 provincial governments and 744 local governments. So third level of government. So intergovernmental relations among all the governments actually is a very important aspect that many federal countries from their experience we can learn. And what's then based on the experience that we see, that whatever we have been able to document in our constitutional text, what will be the future of our constitutional federalism? And there are a lot of challenges, and we have the prospects of it. First thing in the federal notion, as far as notion is concerned, we have opted to go for multi-layer law, more than 2 layers of law. So more than 2 tiers of law. And that's the government out of 752 governments. So we will have 3 vertical governments, vertical levels, and rest horizontal levels, when separation of division of powers will see at each level. So because we have, as I said, 552 governments that will be there in it after the election will be ensured in the law. And the notion of, the basic notion of federalism, as internationally said this morning also, as I pointed out, shared rule and self-rule. The people at the local level are fighting for self-government, self-rule. And higher they go, they want to have their say in the higher level of government, or decision-making level also, where we have termed by the experts as shared rule. And one of the important aspects in our constitution, as we don't see in many countries, as a constitutionally sources of all level of government, competencies of all the governments, they emanate from constitution itself, constitutionally defined sources of power. So that's one of the key issues, key actually achievements that we had, constitutionally defined sources of power. And when we opted for going to the federal system, there were some goals, major goals. One was end of discrimination. Because we have it's a diverse society, religious, ethnic, linguistic, and geographical. We have more than 126 ethnic and caste groups. So in a diverse society, the discrimination that existed for centuries, to end of discrimination was one of the objectives. Then the creation of egalitarian society, of course. Managing diversity, when we have diverse society, how federalism can manage diversity. So that's one of the key tasks of mechanism. And empowering people for sharing opportunity for development. So people want to make a decision on their own and get benefit from development. So these are well specified in the Nepalese constitution, and we have that scheme already well explained in the constitution. So what are the mechanisms for that? So several mechanisms have been envisaged. One, as I mentioned, inclusivity. Since all level and all community from all sectors, let there have equal opportunity for them to come and participate in the constitutional system, in the government system, in the decision-making process. The inclusivity of various ethnic groups and religious groups in the process. And the proportional representation through mixed electoral system is another mechanism. Division of state power and autonomy, of course, at autonomy at each level. And in order to lead the process, institutional negotiation. Negotiation is so important. So you will find at various places of the constitution, cooperation, collaboration, accommodation, the whole issue of accommodation among various contending groups aspiring for power, taking part in the decision-making process through constitutional process I think that's this is also one of the aspects of mechanisms that we have. And we have restructured judiciary also, which is given the final authority. Whenever there are differences and disputes, the final authority lies in the judiciary with a special bench at the Supreme Court, which is very an innovative place in private compensation. So the judiciary is very powerful and at the final authority. So the precondition, as you mentioned again, the precondition for having a federal system, effective federal system, of course, democracy is a precondition. And republicanism, as we have moved from monarchical system to republicanism, is of course one of the preconditions for us, and the rule of law. Without these three, especially democracy and rule of law, I think the federalism nowhere in the world that was. And the comparative aspect of federal system, actually we try to learn from the experience of many countries, including India, and each country, out of 27 or 28 countries now under federal system, a 40% population that, as mentioned this morning, each federal system is different from one from another. So the federal system, we cannot actually, so Nepal's federal system is a unique in itself, so it's a different. So as compared to India, for example, out of the source of Indian federal system is 1935 Act of the United Kingdom, actually, and the whole Pakistan and India started from there. There, actually, major federal system or parliamentary federal system of the world, whether it be Canada or Australia, they had their sources in the parliamentary legislation of UK, United Kingdom. That we don't have. In fact, we developed our own. So now we have our federal structure, as I said, 3 tiers of government, federal, provincial and local level. And we have actually specially protected areas for special groups, cultural heritage, reserve, and that's also another aspect that we have revised and we have practiced that. And we have not found anywhere in the world we have 5 lists of competencies. There are normally 3 lists, we say exclusive, central list, provincial list and concurrent list. We have 5 lists, 3 exclusive lists for 3 levels of government, and 2 concurrent lists, one for federal and provincial and another for federal, provincial and local. So we have a very powerful local level government with exclusive list, and that's very unique. I think if we see compare with other federal systems of the world, we see some in South African constitution, partly the German experience also, but it's not well exclusively defined as in our case. So the guiding principle, of course, I mentioned that in the democracy, the republicanism and other things. So I think the whole basis when the constitution was drafted, because we had had almost 10 years long lost in a war, and so the peace was also very important. We had to, on the one hand, actually initiate a process of peace. So the constitution making process was a part of the peace process, peace building process also. So we have been able to address most of the issues of competence, although some of the issues, pending issues are, we have the transitional justice system in place. We hope that we will be able to resolve the issue. So if you see Nepal, another aspect of Nepal's federal system is we have on the one side huge border China with the communistic system and military system. On the other side we have 3 sides, we have India with federal system, and culturally we have so much close linkage. So we are actually, people say we are landlocked. Normally we tend to say we are land connectivity rather than landlocked. No country is locked anywhere in the world. So we have 7 provinces, I said, 7.4 local bodies, and we have 28.6 million population, 226 actually, and caste groups, and more than 100 languages and dialects. and more than that, 10 and more than this religious groups. So there is really not as diverse as India or Nigeria or other countries, but it's still compared to a country. If you see a country like ours, a small country, the 126 is not a small, just ethnic. So the issue is addressing identity issue. Concept of how we are addressing this issue. Just how to take out some of the, then I'll probably then go straight to a couple of challenges and I'll go my, I see the very, the anchor is, as you know, CNN anchor is very difficult to So the concept of identity, the basic identity is what we are doing in the talk. One, we have self-rule and shared rule, of course, well placed in the constitution. Powerful local self-government is after presidential model. One thing I must share, central and provincial governments and the legislature and governments are parliamentary of parliamentary type. Whereas the local government, 744 government, directly elected based on the first past the post, mayor and deputy mayor, all are elected for 5 years and they can be changed within that 5-year period by anyone. There is no provision of resolution like in place for the provincial and the central government. So it's local government are more powerful in that sense from provincial and central government to a certain extent, and that's one of the reasons why Madesi party, they don't want to see local government as powerful because they want to keep local government under the provincial control as so that one of the plus point of the Deputy Constitution is very much gender balanced, very inclusive. Now 33% of the minimum member representation must be in the upper house, in the more than in the central level parliament, and equal number in the provincial level, and at the local level more than 40%, close to 50%. So gender wise is well represented, and at the local level and at the provincial level there has to be inclusive police representation and the representation of minority groups. It's constitutionally well placed and good electoral process is well guaranteed. And since we are going for the local election on May 14th, I think that once local institutions are created, we will have really the first, I would say the first level of federal government in place, and we will move towards that. One of the biggest challenge, I would say, is actually moving transition from unitary to federal system. Still we are under transitional government, and the election, since accommodation of the Madesi group is still a big challenge. So whether they will participate in the forthcoming election, the constitutional amendment has been proposed, and we are moving very close to their joining the government in the electoral process. Once they are in the process and the legislation issue, so will be resolved to a larger extent. I'll conclude the first with one of the small stories after the outbreak. I got at the Kathmandu University School of Law one South Sudanese friend, black, and he is a human rights professor. He shared me one story that and it was actually quite interesting for you also. So there are 3 blacks in Sudan. Actually, they were all competing and fighting for these changes, and they prayed with the God that they wanted to gain power so that they can implement their views. So God became happy eventually, and they said, okay, so since you all are just start looking at this, what do you want? What do you want for me? And one price, they had said what they were asking for. One said, okay, as a black, whenever I have to go travel around Europe, I have a feeling very bad, when we have to confront the whites. So please turn me white. So the God said, okay, so he became immediately white. So you are very happy. Then the second one, So whatever he had in mind, he forgot. He said, he had become white. So I also must be white. So he also asked the same thing. He said, okay, what do you want? He said, I also want to be white. He said, I want to be, equal status. So the God said, okay, you also be white. So immediately he was also told to be white. And the third one, he had different things. He wanted to say do so many things with the government for the people and for his own community. When he saw his two friends becoming whites, he forgot all and he said, please turn these two people black again. So he did okay. So those two people were turned black into black and all three become black again. So what you have, if you have, the lesson learned is, if you compete for the wrong thing and aspire, for your personal benefit or aggrandizement, you lose everything. All things lost eventually. Thank you very much.
Good story, but I think it's racially a bit insensitive. Huh? We have to be careful. Yeah?
No, I did see a black here.
Okay. Lots of takeaways, but all the best for your constitution. It's interesting because there is an analogy. I mean, if you look at what happened to the Indian mobile revolution, yeah, when we had the Indian mobile revolution, when we were starting up mobile telephony in India, I used to cover it very closely. We took the best from the West, the technology, because the US, UK, European countries were still analog. We jumped to digital. So we went from 0 to a billion in no time. So that's the kind of growth we can see. 752 is a mind-boggling number. I'm sure you guys will do a great job. Interesting times. We are watching it very closely. Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Kinzawe to make your second presentation. When you find it, we are waiting. When you find it, I'll start the shop clock. Anybody feeling sleepy?
I put this on smaller.
Please tell me. I have a solution for that.
This is a program. This is a program with oh yeah.
Thank God you didn't leave it back in Myanmar, sir. Internet is not working, so we will not get any mail also.
Okay.
You ready? Mic? Don't have a mic. Somebody stolen your mic also now. Right, sit down. So Nepal is graciously vacating space for Myanmar now.
So this morning I talked about federalism from a stakeholder perspective. It was mostly about Myanmar. I speak not as a scholar, as an academic, but as a practitioner. This is a very urgent problem for us. And I've been asked also to talk about the regional perspective. I think this is a more interesting presentation. It's a project, ongoing project from Nanyang University in Singapore. Actually, the academics, the title of the project is Asian Federalism. It's very interesting. We published a couple of papers. And it's of relevance for all of us here. And the academics are from Melbourne University in Australia. But the project is funded by Singapore and is anchored at Nanyang University. So last year, almost by chance, I invited them to come to Myanmar and give some talks. It was also funded by HBS in Myanmar. Yeah? So it was very interesting, but I think we need to reach out
a bit more than that. And I have a few descriptions at the end, which might be of use to all of us in our collective quest for answers to the federal dilemma. Now, it's an interesting chart because it shows federalism in Asia over what they call 3 generations. The first, the second, and the third. The first, I think they emerged in the 40s and 50s, right? And then they came out of decolonization, and when the countries became independent, they emerged as federal republics. Of course, India is the best example here. And then they called democratic federations. Malaysia, yes, I've lived in Malaysia. We have the federal model there. Pakistan, some people dispute that Pakistan is a true federal system. And then later on, there was a second wave, you can call it, it's called the second generation, that is federal features in unitary states. And the examples are the Philippines, China, and Indonesia. And it came out of conflict resolution. As you know, there was a big, I think, let's say, revolutionary movement in the southern Mindanao in the Philippines. And in Indonesia, of course, the example is Aceh, and also Papua New Guinea to some extent. Of course, East Timor was actually a sovereign state that was also just invaded by Indonesia. China, of course, you can say there's a little bit of distribution about that. And finally, to the present third wave, that is the emerging federal system, as our friend, learned scholar from Kathmandu has said, Nepal is there, and Sri Lanka, and Myanmar. So these are all works in progress. Nepal is still ahead. I might add that last year I went up to northern Myanmar. It's down the Chinmen River. And I was surprised that just a few days before there had been a team of scholars from Nepal who had come and given a long course of 5 or 7 days on federalism to the local people. So it's very good that we are able to share our experiences. So this project, we also have published a couple of papers. One is called, titled Ethno-Federalism and its Critics. And the second is called Religious Federalism in Asia. All very good, and if you'd like, I'll be very happy to share them with you. I was even thinking of having them translated into various language, or to the local languages in Myanmar, and have more interaction with the local people. Because many friends, from abroad are very worried at the way that Myanmar is going, as I've said in the morning. And then, okay, when you talk about, let's say, concentrating on the third generation federalism in Asia, the question that arises, 2 questions arise, that is state neutrality and secularism. State neutrality is also, I would say, an issue in Myanmar. Is the state, because it didn't emerge out of the independence constitution, it evolved later. So is the state really neutral on the issue of federalism? That's something to think about. If I talk about my own country, in the past it was almost a taboo subject to talk about federalism. It's open now, but still we don't have any clear idea of what the state in Myanmar really feels about federalism. It's very puzzling, especially to our ethnic nationality friends. And secularism. The project says that in Asia, federalism is very closely linked to whether a country or a state is secular or not. That's why the second paper is on religious federalism. But I won't focus too much on the religious issue at the moment. Now, this shows the place of religion in the constitution of the 6 countries. Okay? India, right from the beginning, it was a secular constitution, although some people are starting to, saying to dispute that. Malaysia, Islam. Malaysia and Pakistan, Islam is the dominant religion. Nepal is secular. We said that. Myanmar, we said that. Myanmar, Buddhism has a special position. It's creating a lot of problems for him. And I don't know really which direction the country is going to go. Everybody will have to be very engaged in that. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, Buddhism stay here as a foremost place. And you know, for many decades, the trouble that Sri Lanka had between the Sinhalese Buddhists and the Hindu Tamils. Many years ago, there was a federal party in Sri Lanka that really advocated, for federalism, federal decentralization for the Sri Lankan Tamils, but it didn't get anywhere, and so unfortunately the civil war ensued. So, and then this is the way that how religion can be accommodated in a federal system. Because in many countries, ethnicity is also very closely associated with religion. Many examples to show for that. And so when we are moving towards federalism, how do we link it, or how do we de-link it with religious issues? And here too, this is also going to be a very, I would say, contentious and vexing issue for the new emerging federal countries, the division of powers. The comparison, I think these charts are very valuable if they can be translated. The comparison of unit powers between the center and the provinces. And the powers are like public order, national resources, very important issue. My colleagues will talk about it tomorrow, about national resources in Myanmar and the sharing of it. Land, also very, very important and contentious, taxation and revenue. In Myanmar we have provincial, regional and state governments, but with no revenue. They all dependent on handouts from the center. Because the revenue question, taxation has not been sorted out yet. Education and health, the same situation too. Still very much dependent on the center. And culture and language, I think this is a separate heading and topic, so I think the next session we'll talk about it. It shows all the different, I think, arrangements that each of the 6 countries have on powers. So I'm sure you're very familiar with the situation here in India and also Nepal. In Myanmar, as you can see, if you look at the comparison of unit powers, it's mostly negative because much of the powers have not yet devolved to the regional, the state or the regional governments. I think now, to be fair, with the NLD government, some of the chief ministers are showing more initiative, but it's very spotty. As I said in the morning, all the 14 chief ministers are from just one party, but it also depends on individual ability. Some of them are moving ahead, some of them are just stepping. And again, with Sri Lanka too. So this is a summary which you can also study. And this chart is also quite revealing. I think it's a table that compares, I would say, the degree of the success of federalism in the countries that we study in Asia. So, I don't know how people will really relate to this. The light green bar is India, and the one in pink is Pakistan. So, since this chart does not show, the factors of issues that are involved, it's hard to really, I would say, relate to it. But I think it just approximately shows the degree of federalism that has been achieved. Right at the other end is China. But China is not really a federal system, but there is a lot of degree of, I would say, decentralization of power to some extent. Of course, they are under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. And the provinces in China are encouraged to compete against each other for central government funding. How much infrastructure, how much trade, how much investment, how much industry they can really implement in their provinces. So you could say that it's kind of a de facto or maybe kind of a practical way of federalism. And then I think when you talk about federalism, the electoral systems and the political parties also have a very important role to play. Just to show you the bullet points at the bottom, that is ethnic parties and multi-ethnic parties. True, as we've said, heard from this morning and also earlier, Nepal and India, there are ethnic as well as multi-ethnic parties. Malaysia and Sri Lanka, they're mostly ethnic. Malaysia, they have what they call the Barisan Nasional, which is a national coalition, which is formed out of 3 or sometimes more ethnic-based parties. And Myanmar, there's a big question mark there, still evolving. But to be very factual and frank, I would say that multi-ethnic, truly multi-ethnic party in Myanmar still does not exist. We still have to work on it a bit. So, and then this about the designing of federal units, states and provinces. And again, if I could just remark on 3 countries. Indian example where ethnicity has been added to the system over time. We know that. The situation in the 50s and the situation now, I think there's no ethnicity in the system. And Nepal too is a more recent example, but there is also something there. Myanmar, I think it's also a place where work is still in progress, but still not satisfactory. All the things that they pointed out, this project pointed out, ethnic affairs ministries, there's only one, self-administered zones and divisions. To a limited extent, they have some autonomy, very little. The Nava administration area in the Sagaing region has very limited autonomy, I would say. And then some reserve seats in legislatures, they don't really count for very much. Okay. So, to conclude, I just want to make a few points, and also maybe some prescriptions for the future, not only for Myanmar, but for all of us. Now, the main thrust of this papers, of this project, is that previously there had been a kind of tug of war, or the choice between territorial-based federalism and ethno-federalism. So what they propose and what they advocate for is what they call a hybrid federalism. This morning we've heard many prefixes, federalism with many prefixes, but I would say that there's nothing wrong with that. A hybrid federalism means that you can custom tailor federalism for your own country's needs. And it doesn't mean that everybody will agree with it, but this project says that we don't have to rely completely on the classical United States model. Apologies to some of our colleagues who talk about the United States. So something to think about. It's a hybrid Asian-based model that we can think of. Now, something out of the ordinary, there are some scholars in the University of Toronto in Canada who have proposed something called non-territorial federalism. This morning we talked a lot about, the tussle over territories here in India's northeast and in my home country. This is about federalism, but which is not territorial based. I think it comes from the years in Europe just before the Second World War and after the Second World War, where many ethnic groups lost their homelands. They were swallowed up by the Third Reich or by the Soviet Empire, or they were incorporated into new countries. So they lost their homelands, but they wanted to keep their identity. So they may not have territory, but they saw themselves as a distinct ethnic group, and that laid the seeds for what they call non-territorial federalism. And this scholar advocates something more along the lines of civil society, which looks after the needs and also the rights of those ethnic groups who don't have territory. I would say, yeah, it's a little idea that's a little ahead of its time. Now, the final point is proportional representation. And we know that it is practiced now in Nepal and in other countries. I have been a very early advocate for proportional representation in Myanmar, but the trouble is that many of the political parties are resistant to it. When I proposed this, I really had the ethnic nationalities in Myanmar at heart, but they themselves, they didn't accept it because they thought that they might lose whatever little constituencies or seats they already have. This is something that we have to change. A landslide may be good for democracy, maybe for that party that won the party elections, but in a multi-ethnic and diverse country like Myanmar, what would a single-party democracy amount to? That's the question. Okay. Now the final point is, there's a Myanmar scholar, he's an exile, he came back to Myanmar. He's studying in Berkeley, and he says, if you have a good system of proportional representation, you can even supersede or bypass federalism. It's a very bold statement, but it's something that we can think about. That, let's say, more innovative solutions to this dilemma about federalism. But of course, in this part of the world, people are very closely tied to their land, also the livelihoods, agriculture, and all that. So that means, okay, if you are an ethnic group, you must have your homeland. And sometimes culturally, and in terms of faith, in terms of language, you want a place where you can also call home. This, I would say, this is a very much an evolving concept and something that we can all think about in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you for that interesting presentation. Hybrid federalism, non-territorial federalism, all words that we can hang on to when we start to discuss, I think that's thrown up a whole lot of questions than answers, although I like the prescriptions, but I do have many questions on that presentation. Now I hand it over to our home team, Professor J.K. Patnaik. All the best, sir. Nation wants to know.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me convey my thanks to my friend, Dr. Ravi, and the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak over here. Contrary to the expectations of our anchor, our chair, my paper is a focused thing. Being an academic, we generally focus on a specific thing rather than being generalist. The title of my paper is Federalism and the Issue of Identity in the Northeast India, a relook into the 6th schedule to the Constitution. In this paper, this morning actually Ambassador Mukherjee touched upon briefly about the role of government in these 6 scheduled areas. I have dealt with the discretionary power of the government, and this paper is going to come out in the SAE Journal, India Journal of Public Administration, full conversation. So my presentation is divided into 3 parts. The first part relates to the historical development of the institution of Autonomous District Council. The second part deals with the discussion power per se, rather than the Autonomous District Council. The final part, the concluding section, I make some general remarks. Regarding this Northeast India, all of you are aware of the fact that it is connected to the mainland in 22 kilometers simply corridor. But another interesting dimension is that Northeast is composed of 220 ethnic groups and 220 multilingual, multi-ethnic identities to provide a complex scenario. And this complex scenario was the butt of discussion and the point of contention in the Constituent Assembly. When the Constituent Assembly wanted to discuss about how to ensure and protect the minority groups, ethnic communities, they came up with several things. But before that, let me briefly tell about the political developments in Northeast India during that time, or during the colonial times. Historically, the political development in Northeast has been distinct from the mainland, for the simple reason that the colonial masters governed this region scandalously. They pursued systematic effort to segregate, discriminate, and distance the tribal groups from the plains. This was maybe because of the constant raids made by the tribals on the British officers. They used to take away the daughter of the British officer. They used to, abduct officer. Maybe that is one of the reasons they wanted to rule this part of the country with a sense of revenge. And that sense of segregation and revenge and isolation was not meant to protect these tribes. Although at the superficial level, they were telling that, okay, we intend to protect the tribals from the non-tribals. That was a ridiculous kind of argument they have put forth during that time. When you look at hindsight, that was a systematic effort to divide and rule the people. And this is the part of the colonial policy. The point is that that kind of policy, even today, that baggage of segregation does continue. And that policy has rather distanced this community, this northeast region from the mainland. And in my opinion, we are not able to surmount that baggage. We are not able to cope up with that baggage and resolve the issues of segregation. It started as early as 1896, the Chin Hills Regulation, and 1873 with the Bengal East Frontier Regulation, and in the Government of India Act 1919 and 35, almost all constitutional documents that were the main material sources for the framing of the Constitution, they figure this policy of segregation and distancing the people from the mainland, from the plains people. The tribals, the hills are to be separated from the plains people. This is a kind of sense of, I would say, conspiracy, colonial conspiracy. Maybe I have not mentioned that in my meeting, that word colonial conspiracy. Basically, the Act of 1935, Government of India Act of 1935, provided, because my point of focus is governor, the Act of 1935 was the main source for giving the governor the discretion power. Because the Act provided for the governor having a personal and discretionary responsibility in excluded areas. Personal and discretionary, I am quoting it. And supervisory power over the partially excluded areas. While the ministers and the legislatures had the responsibility for administration and legislation, there was also a third category designated as tribal areas, which were directly administered by the governor as agent to the Governor General under the 1935 Act. So the Constituent Assembly took stock of this and wanted to, at that time, the hills, the northeast, were surcharged with volatility. There are 2 to 3 or even 4 categories of people who had different kind of approaches. One group wanted to be part of India, another group wanted to be part of Burma, another group wanted to be part of the Crown's colony, the Cooper, Professor Felix Forman, Cooper, and another wanted to be just as it is. Having said that, when the subcommittee was set up to look into the tribal groups under the leadership of Federalism, some of the members of the committee were opposed to having this autonomous district council concept. For the simple reason that they did not want to give any specific power or specific constitutional arrangement, but the fear of having another tribal state, quote unquote. But just as we have Pakistan, there will be a tribal state. And that was the background, the constitutional background, the historical background, at which finally though they agreed to have the autonomous district council. Right now we have about 10 autonomous district councils in India, in the northeast India. 3 from Meghalaya, 3 from Mizoram, 1 from Tripura, and 3 from Assam. So there are 10 autonomous district councils covered under the schedule. What is the role of the governor? The governor is an important functionary in the Autonomous Council. When you look at the powers and functions given to the CEO of the Autonomous Council, they have all the powers, executive, legislative, and judicial powers also, with regard to the question law. But the governor is provided with discretionary power, which is a big stumbling block. Although the original intention was to have this decision power to work positively, to protect the people, their rights, and at the same time act as an agent of the center. They should be in such a way that they would not get out of the national framework, but at the same time they should flourish in their own mechanism or this political structure. But this was not to be, and this did not happen. In the beginning, though, there was a lot of enthusiasm, there was a lot of hype regarding the Autonomous Council, guaranteeing the rights of the minority groups. But over a period of time, when we witnessed, these Autonomous Councils have become worse than municipalities, because the discretionary power of the governor was used in such a way that it did not allow these Autonomous Council to exercise their own rights in the name of protecting the interest of the state government. Because the governor happens to be the spokesperson of the central government, but at the same time the spokesperson of the state government, rather than the spokesperson of the Autonomous Council. That was the tragedy of the Autonomous Council. Added to that, the Autonomous Councils do have their fundings from the center via the state government. And the state government has what is a department, Autonomous Specific Department. And those fundings, it takes a lot of time to do the bureaucratic channels, and those fundings, they do not actually help in developing those ADCs. Major chunk of the money goes for only paying for the salary of the employees in the Autonomous Councils. And my friend Robin would say that it gives them employment. But my argument to him, I didn't argue with most of the time regarding this, that these fundings, even if they are employed, that is a kind of underemployment. And there is no development taking place. Let's take the example of this three Autonomous Council in Mizoram, where I have visited frequently, particularly Chakma Autonomous Council and the Naga. I have not visited Mara. He never invited me to Mara Autonomous Council. But I tell you, the road condition, the living condition of people, they have never improved. That one saving grace though is that people will say that it is their identity is retained. But what kind of identity you are talking about? It's ethnic identity, fair enough. But this juggernaut of Indian national integration project, what kind of identity you are talking about? People say that my friend, Professor, said that he feels alienated. Being in Odia, feel alienated in Delhi. What kind of identity? You see, your identity, primordial identity is no longer relevant at the moment. Have you said that whatever these things, the mechanisms, the structures that came up in the beginning, that is suited. At the moment, if you look at it in hindsight, it's okay, it worked well. At least in circumventing the aggressive, the secessionist and separatist listings of the tribes. Fair enough. But at the moment, those arguments do not work. Okay, just let me read out my conclusion. Let me summarize. The purpose of adoption of the sixth schedule was to assure the sentiments of the ethnic minority tribal groups in the backdrop of the sultruous atmosphere of post-2018. The hit tracks of border states witnessing volatility to the extent of abstaining from integrating unity. Obviously, the constitution makers took a high moral ground to guard these ethnic minorities through constitutional elements. It served the purpose then, though in railing around the numerous disparate groups into some elements. Interestingly, Mizoram, there is more number of smaller groups than the three identified through ADCs. Ditto is the case with other states in the Northeast region. Many of these smaller groups have separate language, culture, and so on. They have all integrated under one umbrella identity through Christianity. There are, however, some others who want ADC status. The Mars, for instance, demands separate ADC. This morning he raised that issue. I was telling that I would. For the Mars in Mizoram, there is a Single Development Council, which is a pale shadow of ADC without having any financial or constitutional authority. Same is the situation in respect of other states of Northeast. Given a chance, more and more tribal groups with whose population size is less than a lakh would prefer to have ADC status, which is problematic. Interestingly, another dimension of the ADCs is that these institutions become nurseries to begin with demanding separate union territory status and eventually gradually into separate states. Finally, it is important to dwell on the nature of appointment of the government in the Northeast. In recent years, the approach of the central government with regard to appointment of governors has been very superficial and haphazard. Most of the times, governor's office has been seen as a resting place for retired officers from the services. Some others are second-ranking politicians who are in the fag end of their careers. Under these circumstances, the ADCs, or for that matter, the smaller states in Northeast region, are deprived of the dynamic leadership from the gubernatorial office. The original intention of the governor as the guardian of the ADCs in protecting the rights of the minority groups is rather too demanding in the present juncture. The arithmetic of tribal equation is too complicated. The real intention of national integration through the recognition of differentiation is still to be achieved to the fullest extent, as the emotional and psychological barriers in these regions need to be overcome with a robust development agenda. Constitutional arrangements are essential, but existing institutions need restructuring through a revision of the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. That certainly was very brutal. I'm not sure how many people would agree with you. A lot of people, I'm sure, would want to argue with you. But this is what I've seen in Darjeeling, the Hill Council as well, the same thing, There's no development, and after a while the people get impatient and they start questioning the local government, and immediately they start another movement asking for a state to divert the attention of the people. And that cycle repeats itself again and again and again. But yeah, very brutal. Now what we'll do is we'll open it up for discussion. Same housekeeping requirement that you ask a question, keep it short. If you make a very long statement, I'll tell you that our soldiers are patrolling in the border and politely shut you up, yeah? That's the best way to end an argument here in India these days. So there are questions. Please introduce yourself and to whom you are asking the question to. We have 15 minutes, Alara, you said? Okay, but we started late. We can have some more.
20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes. Thank you.
Let me go first. This is in relation to Nepal. We are talking about implementation issue and ownership issue. Yes, implementation of the federal structure is very, very difficult. We know in India also, in spite of a good constitutional reform, decentralization to the village unit is still far from reality, and I agree with that. And one question is, what are we talking about ownership issue? Ownership of resources as a whole for federating units, or ownership as a community or ethnic base, or on what basis ownership will be decided? That is my point. And yes, from another paper I came to understand that the determining factor for deciding federal unit is we talk about what do we talk about? Just a minute. Yeah, identity and viability. How do you decide identity with so many different ethnic groups, and any territorial issue play in deciding the viability of the federating units? These are my basic question. And yes, very interesting general comment.
Soldiers are still patrolling.
No, instead of taking another time, just 2 comments. Yeah, very quickly. Yes, from the experience we have in Mizoram, we have a lot to learn with the idea of hybrid federalism and non-territorial kind of thing. See what is happening among our still minority groups, which are demanding certain kind of autonomy from the state. I think these are some of the innovative ideas we can learn from the emerging federal units. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another question? Yes? Remember the soldiers, yeah?
Yes. Myself, Swalal Jango, Assistant Professor in Department of Political Science. My question to Professor Dhungel is that current Nepalese constitution having two type of international border regulations. The one type is India-Nepal border regulation and another is India-China or Tibet border regulation. So now the currently new constitution is under the process of a formation and implementation. That whether these two type of border regulation will be merged into one or remain as it is currently there. So what is the future status of that two type of border regulation? Thank you.
Both the questions are to him, so let him answer, others he might forget that.
First thing is the ownership issue. I think I'm talking about the ownership. I said in ownership of the whole process. That means the ownership of the constitution itself. Because when the constitution was being promulgated by the Constituent Assembly, because we had, this is the 7th constitution that we had. This is we have had now. The 6 other constitutions were virtually a kind of gifted constitution, were drafted by experts, issued by the king, and the latest one, the interim, was adopted by the assembly. So actually the Constituent Assembly process, when we say, so even if the minorities' views reflected must be there, all the stakeholders represented in the Constituent Assembly must feel that their say is somehow reflected in the Constitution. One. The second is, even if it's not reflected, they must feel that they were allowed to have their views on the Constitution, which was somehow they were not accepted in the Constitution, because there are many demands which demands to be reflected in the legislation, general regulations, legislation. Also, the people want even how many quotas should be there, this should be specified in the Constitution, in the health program, everything they want, because the assembly, they want to articulate every their demands which they want to see reflected in the Constitution, which is not possible. So, but the process-wise, the state elder must feel that they are allowed to speak out their views, and and that thing, many of some of the parties, the ethnic group, ethnic party, Malaysi party of the plains, and they had to boycott, and their attempt was not sufficiently made to incorporate their views and even to allow them to speak out, because the time given at the Constituent Assembly at the last moment before they promulgated was almost the whipping was issued. Whipping is not applicable in the Constitution, in the Constituent Assembly according to the Constitution, and the tendency was there, to issue whips to their respective party, and although it was adopted with a majority of over 90%, but even the members of the same party were not allowed to speak on the various provisions of the Constitution. So the ownership was not fully reflected on the Constitution. That's one. And I think the identity issue, we had, I said, 126 ethnic and caste groups. Now recently, when I was making a presentation with 50 members of the parliament, one of the ministers said, because we never had in Nepal research on how many ethnic groups and identity groups exist in Nepal. So since we don't have data, and whom to call identity group, even the majority group, Brahmin and Kshatriya, they have been now called identity group. So identity issue is a kind of a term which has been very vaguely reflected, and that and therefore the constitution doesn't say about identity. It could be of different identity, as yes, mentioned. It could be, but to write that in the constitution as such. So there has been a demand that there should be study and all the identity groups should be listed in the constitution or through legislative framework it should be listed. That's So that has to be it has to be decided through research. And the border regulation issue, I would say we have separate agreements, separate treaties with India as well as with China, and that treaty is recognized in the constitution itself. It has to be adopted by the constitution once it is there. And there has been demand that borders should be regulated in India. There should be passport issues should be because we have no passport requirement in between Nepal and India. The demand comes from the small communist factions, because there are different groups, influenced by different sectors. But the question is, as far as the Nepal-India treaties are concerned, there is the eminent persons group team constituted. They are reviewing it, and China virtually doesn't want anything to be reviewed right now. They want rather Indian treaty to be reviewed rather than their own. So this one, but right now, I don't think that this is going to be reviewed at all. But the issues will definitely crop up again and again.
So if you really want to understand the Nepalese constitution, we'll have to kidnap Dr. Dhogyal and keep him here for at least 1 to 6 months, yeah? And you will fully understand everything. It's a good resource to keep in Mizoram University. Okay, Dr. Robin.
I just want to have a comment of Professor Patnaik. He has come down heavily on the 6th schedule. If you minus 6th schedule, what would be the fate of the ethnic nationalities, ethnic communities that you have not dealt with? Because you have, talk about the limitation of the 6th schedule, but then if this is not there, what would be the fate of these communities?
In addition to that, we'll take one more from Dr. Axel. After that, I'll complete. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I was really intrigued by this term, non-territorial federalism, and I thought first of all, hey, what could that be? What could it possibly mean? And then, of course, you mentioned proportional representation, and of course, that's perhaps the point. I mean, we are largely here talking about units which are territorially constituted, and of course, for their purpose, the federal state, the federal autonomous district, and so on are the relevant units. But we have so many other settings where cultural groups, religious groups are just not territorially contiguous. And then, of course, proportional representation is one option. But India, of course, has also other options. I mean, it has reservation schemes for particular groups which are not which you cannot define territorially, but which have a quite strong joint consciousness. Particularly the SC groups. In other respects, the Indian system does not reserve I'm not entirely sure how far there is a reservation for religious minorities. We are not in the political system. But of course, one can think about reservation systems in terms of seats in parliament, seats in regional or even national assemblies, all types of federalism, not working by the principle of territory, but rather by the principle of proportionate representation in one way or the other, or by bringing numbers into institutions, numbers of people representing particular groups. It's an entirely different way to think about the problem, and perhaps. So thank you very much for this input, that you gave us, that it's possible to think beyond the federal state or economic system.
Right, sir?
Okay. A simple query to my senior colleague, Professor Patnaik, to elaborate more on Christian identity. So will it be appropriate to use Christian identity so far as the 6th schedule is concerned? Because the identity issue in 6th schedule is mainly with ethnicity.
Yes. First of all, regarding Robin's question, it used to find a distinction between a hill tribe and plains tribe. This was done by the colonizers. This is a purely colonial discourse, which we do not want to now adopt after 70 years of independence. Look at the 10 states coming under the 5th schedule. They have PESA. PESA is doing now wonderful. Here, in the case of this 6th schedule, particularly this ADC, they do not have even 73rd Amendment for Mizoram and all this. If you look at the budget of the small states, the budget is so small compared to the municipalities of those big areas. Look at the economic level of economic development. Question of identity is always bugging us, and it is only a primordial issue. We have to overcome, because in the national project, national integration project, the identity was taken as a subset. Now we have to overcome and grow beyond that identity and those primordial identities. Ethnic identity is a primordial identity, and you have to go beyond. This morning I think we had very long, very wonderful discourse by the inaugural speakers. That is my answer. Regarding the Christian identity, even if constitutionally it is not a Christian state, Government of India says it is a Christian state.
Thanks for being back. We are here now in session number 3, titled Culture, Identity, Language and Federalism, which is basically talking about society in South Asia in general, and we have of course to kind of make it precise, bring it a little bit down towards the aspect we want to be discussing about. I mean, we will be discussing more precisely, I think, and the contributors to this matter will be discussing more precisely about how we say certain elements of identity, cultural identity, language, ethnicity, play into the formation of let me say, of political pressure, how this builds into federal structures, how this has led to the emergence of federal structures, how the state is reacting on it, and then how these things play out under the federal system. I think we have all 3 contributions we have here in this panel are about India. Costa is going to speak, I think, more generally about structural terms, and Iki and Ruben will be speaking about from a visa perspective, particularly different aspects. Yeah, Kostu Dekar is a researcher and consultant in Delhi, very much linked to, on various levels, linked to northeast India. Well, the floor is yours. So just go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Axel, and good afternoon, everyone. So far, well, a lot of the initial ground has been cleared by previous presentations. So, given the paucity of time, I will like to kind of maybe straight away move to the main part of my presentation, although it is essential that we do talk a bit about the conceptual debates and how actually what do we mean when we talk about these very loaded terms like federalism, cultural identity, linguistic identity. Each of these terms are very loaded and it requires a lot of reflections, as I would say. As you would see, this is just like a loose title of my presentation. I have called that Federalism and Identity as looked from the quote-unquote margins. Because I think this is very important, because federalism by definition is something that is a negotiation between center and margin, right? And it is in fact very befitting that we are having this very important conference in place like Mizoram, which historically has been having a very, you can say, very exciting as well as problematic negotiation with this whole concept of federalism, which has been also the case to a large extent for Northeast India. And also it is very interesting for me, especially coming from Assam, because although I'm in Delhi, I'm from Assam, I'm an Assamese there. So it is very interesting that we are doing this along with the comparative perspective of Myanmar, because on a lighter note, I mean, a lot of people in Assam, like the Assamese people, in fact, in many ways blame the Burmese for bringing Assam within the colonial British fold. right? Because people will know the history. It was Yandabu Treaty in 1826 when there was invasion from Burma, and consequently the whole history unfolds and Assam comes into the British fold. So in a lighter way, all the blame to do with central-state relation, federalism, all debates, in a way there is a Burmese connection all along. So it is in a way it's a quirk of history that we are talking about federalism along with the Myanmar's perspective on a lighter note. So, well, let me now, maybe I should skip the initial slides, but these are just a broad kind of conceptual parameters that I was trying to bring out, that when we talk of Northeast, I mean, why do we continue to call it a reign of exceptionalism? Right, I mean, there are three broad elements here. I mean, there are a lot of debates I'm aware of it. We can take it up in discussions if possible, and I'm also aware that people are talking about that we should not be prisoners of history and we should kind of look ahead and forward. All that is fine, but I think some ground has to be very this grounding has to be very clear. And the three element, of course, security has been a predominant concern, national security. Then there is whole issue of this cultural obscurity, right? As the frontier, Northeast is seen as a frontier in different senses, as cultural frontier, civilization frontier, security frontier, all this, and the issue of development, how it is seen as the underbelly of development. So this three kind of tendency through which the state has been always placing Northeast is very crucial in this. Let me just quickly move forward. And again, I would say that how the federal relation, there are two kind of contradictory, or you can say at least tendencies in negotiation. That is the whole issue of national security consideration that comes from above, and there are this pull of ethno-nationalism also that comes from below. So this is this whole, between this push and pull, that the whole idea of the Northeast is unfolding over the years. Then again, this is a term I am borrowing from most of the post-colonial writing, like from writers like Bharti Chatterjee, who talks about moments of anxiety. Of course, they talk it in a different context, in post-colonial context, but I'm trying to borrow it to the Northeast context, and I'm saying that how historically, and I would not call it historically as such, because it is a living history, this history is still unfolding in many ways, how the state has actually treated Northeast with some particular domain of anxiety. One is the geopolitical vulnerabilities. Second is, again, as I said, the economic issues, that it's an underperforming kind of region. Then the whole idea of not understanding the culture of the region. And the fourth one is a very recent and very important development of this community that has been out migrating. See, this is very important because in Northeast we talk about securing identities and kind of consolidating identities, but at the same time, there is an increasing, what many people are calling it as the exodus from the Northeast to other parts of India. So that is also bringing a lot of new changes and actually new dynamics into play. So these are the four ways, I mean, we can get it into it. I know that it requires more attention and more discussion, but now let's move forward. We can come back to it maybe later. Well, now this is important because when we talk of federalism and the whole idea of having a federal spirit, and many other speakers have already approached this issue of quasi-federal, or maybe have India being a union with some federal characteristic. There are thinkers like Rajiv Bhargava, political scientist, and Susan Rudolph and Nolan Rudolph, who have done very important work on federalism. And they talk about that there is a fundamental issue here, and that is the imagination, that is the national imagination of India as a union. And again, these are very thick and broad topics, but quickly, there are three kind of nationalism they argue that have emerged. One is that whole ethno-religious nationalism, where Hindu-Muslim have seen as a binary. So other religions at the fringe or at the periphery necessarily get sidelined. And again, this composite model where India is seen as a civilizational discourse. So the what we call Indic civilization. So there are communities now historically who have been outside this model. So now how do you figure them? Now there are different projects ongoing, and you can go on and on. Different projects to appropriate it, to identify it in different ways and try to kind of redefinition of cultures, that is there. But predominantly this whole Indic civilization discourse. And the third one is that coalescent nationalism, that you consider someone as part of India to the extent that they are okay with the Indian national identity. So in other sense, it is the state of India who tries to define the national identity. Right? So these are the three problematic which kind of keeps coming back to haunt any kind of debate in federalism, specifically when it comes to Northeast. Again, this we already talked about, that people say it has a centripetal kind of nationalism, which is insensitive to other identities, which is within nations kind of identities. And importantly, federalism more than anything else is also a state formation process. Right, so there is an agenda of the state for state formation. Through federalism, we also do that. So we have to be aware of that. And importantly, it's the State Reorganization Committee. Although we always talk about it as the Linguistic Reorganization Committee, and we cite this as one of the kind of key feature of Indian federalism as this phase in 1950s and 60s. But importantly, in the committee report, you find that the report actually talks about that it is the Union of India that is the basis of our nationality. So it is very clearly defined in the committee report that Union of India still is paramount and it is central. So there are a lot of these different perspectives. This I think we need not, we can very be quick because other people have talked about it. But still we have to talk about it because when we come to Northeast, and I will come to Assam specifically in a bit, that asymmetrical federalism is actually one of the key highlights when we talk about federalism in the Northeast context. Because this is a kind of politics of recognition that this kind of states have claimed, the state have kind of secured for itself. It's a process of dialogue between the center and state, and there are this good and bad, different people have pointed out what could be the good points and what could be the bad points. And sixth schedule is seen as some kind of a shared sovereignty or negotiated sovereignty, right, which is very important when it comes to, especially to areas like maybe like Nagaland, which has been staking their own claims to self-determination, sovereignty. So shared sovereignty concept is there, and that same thing can be applied in a smaller scale when it comes to issues like sixth schedule or autonomous district councils. So we'll come to it more. But what we have to remember, as previous presenters have already kind of pointed out, that we also have to remember that it's a very kind of a delicate or a tenuous arrangement where there are a lot of problems within this, especially to do with the financial issues and the role of the Council of Ministers that they still have. But now this will, maybe I can call it the second part of my presentation. That will be a very, very quick or broad outline or timeline of Assam's experience with federalism. Right? So again, I can take it up in questions if anybody is interested in details. Of course, it starts with refugees question after partition, and many people would know the famous debate that happened between the first Chief Minister of Assam, Gopinath Bordoloi, and Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru about how many refugees Assam wants to keep. And there was one of the key moments when Assam was in a way almost kind of forced or coerced to take a burden of refugees at that time. Because Assam had officially on record has said that it does not have the capacity to absorb refugee, and the Prime Minister of India actually threatened to stop the sanctions, economic sanctions, the financial sanctions to Assam. So that was one of the key moments of rupture. Then comes the reorganization on linguistic and tribal lines, as many of us would know. Then the Chinese aggression of 1962, the infamous, by now infamous speech of Prime Minister Nehru of "My heart goes with people of Assam," because Indian army was pulling out. So that is one of the historical scars from which that many people in Assam would still remember that statement as one of the reflections that how the sense of abandonment. Then, of course, Assam movement, 1979 to 85, which was the period of a social movement that talked about alleged infiltration into Assam. People are talking about infiltration from Bangladesh. Of course, there are other dynamics within this, but it was one time when the state and what we can call the quote-unquote civil society in Assam came into some kind of clash. Then there was a rise of regional party. Now this is important, but because nowadays many a times we kind of tend to correlate regionalism with federalism. Now Assam is one area where the problematic of that is shown, because although regionalism was on rise post 85 and different kind of models came of ethno-federalism model comes, but that shows the inadequacy later on. And insurgency was one of the outcome, and role of governor becomes very crucial here. Right? And Sarkaria Commission, which was there for center-state relations, the commission that was supposed to look into center-state relation, has in fact issued some kind of guidelines in the way the armed forces should be used in this kind of conflict areas. But many people have pointed out that in the case of Assam, there was a system called Unified Command Structure, in which it goes against the principle and philosophy of Sarkaria Commission, where the armed forces are given some kind of higher power above the local other kind of security forces. And the seventh phase is actually the phase where Congress as a party has a long run, but by regionalizing itself. So Congress is to call itself a national party with a regional outlook. So that was the phase as Congress has a long run. And the eighth, the recent phase is that the regionalist party at one point, which you would expect to be kind of a party that will call for regional autonomy, in a way allies with the party which is traditionally traditionally seen as a centrist party like BJP. So these are the new equation emerging. So it brings new kind of debates into this whole issue of center and state and how regionalism can be or cannot be a force of federalism. Well, this is another theoretical construct now, again coming back to Assam. We see that how the state actually, there are again quick three ways we can see how the state actually is trying to negotiate with the politics of ethnic minority identity. And one very important, this is a phrase used by other people but mostly popularized by political scientists from California University called Bethany Narasimha, who talks about the approach, she called it the safety valve approach, by which she means that the state at times allows certain forms of local violence, localized violence. They allow certain elite group within the communities to take power and usher in corruption and violence and intergroup competition in the quote-unquote interest of national security. So many a time when we criticize the sixth schedule, we talk about the inner corruption, the violence inherent in it. We also have to remember these approaches that the state also might be adopting, because they think it's better to have some kind of localized autocracy, or what is called ethnocracy. Right? This ethnocracy and localized autocracy might be a better bargain than to go for high-level insurgency or secessionist movements. So Bodoland in Assam is given often as a clear example of this, where the local elite groups are empowered by the state so that they will kind of keep the localized violence going against the larger demand of secession. Then second one is that the autochthony banner, or the so-called politics of indigenous rights. Now this is a term that has gripped the Northeast. Anyone who has been observing as reading Northeast, we hear that nowadays people are no longer actually talking about tribal rights, we are talking about indigenous rights. And it's a terminology that has come from international rights discourse we have imported into the Northeast. And it's a very loose term, there is no clear definition, anyone is actually claiming to be indigenous. But the politics of it is very interesting, because moment you are calling yourself indigenous, you are kind of staking a claim over a territory. So your identity is kind of territorialized. So that is also one way that a lot of the ethnic violence that has been going on, at least in Assam, has this kind of indigenous streak to it, and the state actually is pitting different groups against each other in the name of indigenous rights. And third one is also important, the bullet and ballot, how it goes together, goes hand in hand. Again, it is very obvious to people who have been studying Northeast from close quarters that bullet and the ballot is not necessarily conflicting in Northeast. They are not necessarily two different sides. They are the two sides of the same coin, in fact. And again, we have examples of many autonomous council areas where you have seen the militant groups who are militants have kind of come to quote-unquote mainstream, right? And they have fought elections. Again, with support from people who are still with the government, and they have formed government. So that is again, bullet and ballot goes together. So these are the three ways in which the ethnic politics has to be understood, right? Beyond and besides the bigger point. Yes, I'm almost done. So now let's come to the emerging trends, and I think this is very critical that we have to talk about in India today. Now the debate of federalism in India has to move to the fiscal federalism or resource federalism. I think that is very, very crucial. Of the very, very recent developments in the last 2 years that we have seen, NITI Aayog, that is the National Institute of Transforming India, that is the acronym for NITI Aayog, which has replaced the Planning Commission. It is very interesting to see that NITI Aayog is being debated, although we are yet to debate in the context of Northeast, but I think this is what we should do, because NITI Aayog has actually replaced the Planning Commission, and there are instances where NITI Aayog has actually bypassed the state governments and have directly been negotiating with the district administrators. So there are people who have been arguing that NITI Aayog is anti-federal. So there is a big debate, because BJP on their manifesto, in their policy, is projecting NITI Aayog as one of the primary examples of what they are calling as competitive and cooperative federalism, as a model of competitive and cooperative federalism. Whereas one way there is a merit, because NITI Aayog has a governing council in which chief minister of every state is a member of the governing council. So that is the federal side. But on the other hand, Planning Commission, which had the planning and expenditure capacity and had the chief ministers, is now, NITI Aayog now does not have the financial role of the finance. Now it's gone to the finance ministry. So in that way, again, the chief ministers and state functionaries are now cut off from the planning and expenditure part. So that is a very crucial development. Nobody is kind of looking at it much. What are the implications for federalism in that angle, right? And GST is the another angle, the General Services and Tax Bill, the one nation, one tax kind of regime that the party is talking about. That is another important development because Assam again, ironically or whatever, Assam has been the first state that has passed the GST bill in the state. Now India on the national level has adopted this. So GST has other implication. How far GST is federal or it has implication of movement towards unitary tendencies. So these are the resource federalism kind of thing we have to talk about. So yes, so final point about that my previous speaker have also talked about non-territorialized federalism or federalism as a supra-territorial federalism. So in that the sub-regions have to play an important role, and people have pointed out that Indian federalism will be successful or not depending on the project of South Asian regionalism. And David Ludden, who is a historian in New York University, has written a very important essay called Where is Assam? Where he argues that Assam is historically and otherwise also placed within the South Asian realities, Southeast Asian realities. But he cautions us that we have to be careful about what are the forces or what are the motives that are pushing towards opening up of the borders, right? Whether we have kind of enough stakeholders at the ground level, because that was the whole point end of the day when we talk about empowering the region through opening up of borders. How much of influence or how much of actual say the region will have in the decision making of that. So that has been historically, that has been one concern of the region historically. So let's see what will be the new changes, because there are new kind of alliances coming up in the region. But very last point is that I think in this whole debate of federalism, what we also have to bring in, which in my point of view is very crucial in India right now, is we have to bring in the nature of the party system in India. Because there are a lot of changes that is coming through the party system. And Rajni Kothari, who has been an iconic political scientist, has once he has coined this term called one-party dominant system. And he talked about Congress as the one-party dominant system. And now perhaps we have to think of a return of one-party dominant system in India. And what will be the implications for this kind of center-state binaries, this kind of debates of federalism, and in all this very, very large picture, where do the so-called margins feature? So that is the final kind of theoretical point I will put up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaustubh, for this really comprehensive overview about, well, the Northeast, perceptions of the Northeast, and the history of federalism in the Northeast, and not as a system that as being driven by identity politics, but at the same time giving us the overview of how, on which different levels, in which ways the Indian state actually addresses aspects of federalism on the fiscal side, on the security side, and so on. Of course, this is a very, very complex picture. I think those of us conversant with Indian politics will find some of the issues. Well, we have discussed these things, of course, before, but we have put them in a particular context that is very valuable with regard to the discussion of federalism. I could imagine that our guests, particularly from Myanmar, may have a number of questions, and I just want to, a bit out of the rule, I just want to ask if there are any kind of issues about questions of understanding, where you perhaps have an urgent need to ask about a particular aspect of Kaustubh's presentation which you didn't understand. So maybe I can just give a few minutes that there are some immediate questions. So if you have anything, let me know. Yeah, please.
I thought we wait till the whole panel was over, but since you asked me, it's about
only about factual questions, not discussion.
No, it's factual. Now, okay, you talk about the economic situation, in the Northeast. As you know, there's a big initiative coming from China. It's called BCIN. Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar. And China, I think, really is going to push it very hard. There's a big economic corridor as well as the railway line and all that. So, okay, if India subscribes to it, I mean, the corridor will come through the Northeast. So how do you feel, does even the Northeast feel that they need more of a say in this? How do they feel about that? I know it's a very deep and complex question.
I think we do that later. That's already going very much into details. I was just, sorry, I just been thinking about there may be certain questions about technical terms, institutions and so on that exist here. Yeah, this question, we'll discuss this in the later general discussion. I mean, that's fine. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sorry, one small point on the general sales tax. Could you, you're coming back to that, I'm sure, but just to give a little clearer understanding, because I'm trying to understand this and I'm not comprehending what exactly what will be the implications for.
I mean, yeah, it's a very complex question. I mean, I'm sure if there are other economists in the house, they can give a better answer. But what I was, in fact, my take on this was actually to see from the perspective of from a state like Assam and from Northeast, I mean, how Assam could become like one of the states that has adopted it in the first, because traditionally we have seen that these states have often existed in some kind of negation, some kind of a complicated negotiation with the center. My take was mostly to see that it's very, in a way, important to understand these changes. That states like Assam now have become model state in a model of so-called cooperative federalism. These states have become pioneers, rather than at one point being the state that has been often at the confrontation level or being seen as a state with a very regionalist agenda. From there, the states have become now pioneers in these kind of models, because other states like Tamil Nadu and West Bengal to some extent, and I think even Maharashtra, these states about reservation, right? Because this is like they are doing away with differentiation in taxes. They want to implement an uniform taxation. So different states have got apprehension, but how a state like Assam would have the political will to kind of pass this kind of GST.
Thank you very much. Good. We have more space for discussion, more comprehensive discussion later on. Right now, we want to go to the second presenter, Dr. Lal Rediki Tipanai. As I have been allowed to approach you, I think you are going to talk to us about the role of language in the formation of identity and politics, especially here in Mizo.
Thank you. Now, my paper initially was like, I thought I would deal with how language is related to concept formation and how it sort of dictates social behavior and controls the belief system and bring in, certain aspects of administration or versus the modern administration versus the traditional administration, which in the context of Mizoram. Now, I'm going to change it halfway because I have been listening to you all, and some of what I have tried to say would not be too relevant over here. Because first of all, I would like to start with a statement saying that language is power. Okay, language is power. We talk in terms of ethno-linguistic minority groups, and we talk in terms of these minority groups always in conflict with the dominant powers, etc., etc. And since language is power, and I personally I don't see any kind of remedy towards resolving the conflict, because I feel that it is also based in economics, the economy of the community also. Because I would like, I'll just give you a little bit illustration of how language helps us to form our concept of things. For instance, let me just give you an example, a small example of the geographical concept that we have in Mizo, for example. Now we have the north and the east and the west and the south division like that, like all other geographical directions. Now, to a certain extent, south, which we call Sim, and north, which we call Myanmar is very neutral in a sense. But on the other hand, when we talk about East, we call it Khotan, and West, we call it Khotan. And this is geographical in a sense because when we say West, Khotan, it's down there. Okay, East is up there. And then anyone who travels out of Mizoram, even just going to Shillong, would say in our language, Shillong Kazuk Kaldeang means Zuk would means down. Right? Shillong Kazuk Kaldeang Zuk would mean down. Now Shillong is much higher in altitude than us, but we have that concept because we are settled, our settlements is generally on the hilltops. But Sampai, for example, we consider to be above us. And Myanmar, we consider it to be above us. Although it might be lower in altitude from the sea level, you know. And then if we say we go to Myanmar, we'll say Myanmar, Han means up, Galdeam. So that is how we form our concept, geographical concept also. And I would like to point out only one, though I have a number of examples, only this kinship relationship. Because in Mizo, we don't have cousins, we don't have second cousins and all that. My first cousin is my sister. My first cousin could be my brother, and his children could be my niece and nephew. There is no concept of second cousin at all. And this is an aspect which sort of reflects how close we are as a community. And when a community is so close, I would like to add that when a community is still very close, one has to take into consideration their traditional concept of things or the worldview that you have, be it politics or be it anything. You know, you have to take into consideration, because otherwise anything that you introduced or imposed upon them becomes something very alien and becomes something very disrupting and very disturbing also. And that I would like to say in terms of your federal system of government or in terms of governance as such. Okay? And then I would also like to say that, talk about the Mizoram 1966 conflict. Now we all know about that, isn't it? It started in 1966, it's like 20 years, and then it's basically a struggle for independence from India. But the basis of that conflict is economic, and it is full of, as we would say, minority community grievances, right? Minority community grievances, because we were neglected by Assam. Okay, we were neglected by Assam, and that was a conflict. And now we have today, from the day the peace accord was signed, Mizoram became relatively very peaceful. But unfortunately, because of the peace that we enjoy here, compared to other states in the Northeast, we have a lot of immigration problem. And the immigrants from across the border, as well as from other states within Northeast, started creating their own minority group. And I'm saying that I'm using their own language, and even in terms of religion also, following their own denomination without attempting to join us, you know, to affiliate with us. You know, that is a problem that we are beginning to face now. And this minority group becomes a very powerful political pressure group at the time of election. And we have seen it. We're going to have our general election next week, and then people will go to the candidates saying that I am the leader of this minority group. If you want our vote, give us this. I am the leader of this minority group. So, what happens, because as far as language is concerned, Mizo, all the dialectal variations and all the linguistic, all the language differences among the Mizo who are settled here were sort of, come together under the head of Mizo only. Now Eralde does no longer speak his dialect. Myanmar does no longer speak his dialect. Boogie, who is settled in Mizoram, no longer speak his dialect, and it all comes under Mizo, the Dulian language. And then if you go to the southern part of the district autonomous, the district also, like Lai, for example, Lai would prefer to speak in Mizo than speak in their own language. But what happens today is, what we are seeing today is that this emerging problems, which could be political in a sense later on, has become very, very, it's a concern for the state now. In spite of our, I would say that we are very, very hospitable in a sense to every one of them. But then, that is a problem with linguistic ethnic groups and minority groups. And I don't know how much ever we debate about these issues unless there is something which could bring them together in terms of language, or somehow create a common language for each small ethnic groups. I don't know how we are going to solve the problem, because, as I've said, language is very important. As long as you speak a different language, you cannot really identify with one another. That is what happens. Because, for instance, like after, although we are saying that the Mizoram conflict has ended, and that there is peace, and rebel group have come over ground, and now they are also, part of the normal social system and all that. But then what happens? What we see today is that another problem is slowly emerging here in Mizoram also, in the name of Zoro. You all know Zoro, isn't it? Zo reunification. That is Mizo reunification. I have discussed things with them a lot of time, but these people, they believe that all the Mizo ethnic group living in Bangladesh, living in other states, living in Myanmar, living in other places, would be able to come together one day and enjoy one state together. But within that group, there are many different linguistic groups, and it's going to be very difficult to bring together when you speak a different language. And I think you look at yourself when you speak a different language, that, affinity or whatever is very difficult. So I'm trying to say that that is one aspect of what Mizoram is going through at this point of time. Now, in terms of the governance or whatever, because I'm from the English department, I don't use words like federalism and all that, but I do read a lot about ethnic race and, ethnic race and identity from African literature, post-colonial literature, and we do a lot of those analysis of those. Now, another aspect that I would like to bring in, and I'm being very post-colonial in this, because there is some kind of a rethinking of the Mizo chieftainship now. Chieftainship was abolished, and as we see today, some of the good practices under the chief is being continued by the Central Young Mizo Association. And the chief in the traditional Mizo society, the way he governs, the way he rules is very, very democratic in us. It's a true democratic system. And this comes to mind that when we talk about colonial, post-colonial, and what we had inherited from the colonial, from the colonial period, I think if you look at our democratic system, I would challenge anyone to study and compare and analyze the traditional democratic system of governance and the British system, the British democracy today. Because you would find that what we have read in literature, we see that, and we know what our traditional practices are, and we have been very, very, we have seen that they have been very kind, they have been very democratic and all that. And therefore, I would say that if we are talking in terms of federal system like that, isn't it time to think about our traditional administrative governance system? That's what, in a very layman's attitude, I am stating this, because I believe that just as language is important for our for formation of the concepts of the world that the way we see the world, I think it's also important to look into and take into consideration some of our traditional practices, which are good practices and which holds the community together in peace. That is what I want to say. There is no lack, even if you are poor, nobody is poorer than the poor, right? That is what the system is like. We can imagine a society that Mizo today, you will see, you go around and see there are no beggars, except for those blind people who sit and sing their songs and all that, there are no beggars. And that is a continuation of the chief's administration that we continue to see today. So why don't we also bring together the new and the old, if it is possible? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for giving us, I think, very much an insider's view about how language and local politics and formal and informal structures actually work within one of those federal states of Northeast India where we are here right now in Mizoram. I think this was extremely important as a first-hand account, especially I think for our guests from outside of India, but perhaps also from those other, for guests from other parts of India who don't know Mizoram so well, to understand how identity formation in terms of language, in terms of local governance and so on can work here. I suppose there will be a good number of questions, but this was very fascinating. Thank you very, very much. We have a third presentation, Dr. K. Robin, here also from Mizoram University. Oh, I forgot to formally introduce she's working with the Department of English here at Mizoram University, I think. Well, no, please let me say this. And Dr. Robin is an associate professor here at Mizoram University at the Human Resource Development Center, and I must say this, a fellow historian. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, sir. By discipline, I'm a student of history. If you look at the program, I'm not at all in the list panel, but since Professor Titi Haukip, because of his ill health, could not come,
Dr. Alana asked me to fill the void. So I just prepared this morning on what should I really speak, and it comes to my mind based on the thing. I thought I will dwell on the possibility of replicating the Indian model to Myanmar, particularly trying to propose the possibility of how decentralization form of government like under the 6th schedule can maybe feasible and relevant in the Chin Hills or Chin State. Well, I would like to go back to history a little bit for those who come from outside on the people inhabiting this large landmass stretching from the eastern Himalayas to the western confluence of the Chinwin River, as what Professor Max Miller has called, belong to the same ethnic stock who had all passed the 100 gates of the Himalayas. I don't know how many gates he have located, but he talks about 100 gates of the Himalayas, which means that all these people do really belong to the same ethnic stock, people of Burman group. Now, these people, when they come together with come under a new political arrangement, that is under the colonial arrangement, there appears to be what Hamon calls culture shock. There definitely seems to be a lot of, they experience a lot of shock in terms of their culture, their language, their identity, and so on and so forth. Now, as though Professor Patnaik, earlier speaker, had come down heavily on the 6th schedule, I would like to, however, defend here as to the feasibility of the 6th schedule in this part of the region. And, well, I would also like to stress a little bit on the legacy of the colonial government, the way in which these communities were identified, the kind of superimposed nomenclature that were being imposed upon them, superimposed nomenclature like Kuki Chin, Zo Mi Zo. These are nomenclature that are not actually accepted by these communities. In fact, they prefer to call themselves in the local variant, not like the Kuki, Zomi, Chin, or Zo. Now they have their own local variants of identifying themselves. Now this set of people, once, scaling the Chinwin Valley and ascending the hills, that is in the Chin State, present Chin State, started to establish and create their own identity. And from the Chin State, especially from the Chinway, as they go further west, they establish their own separate identities. Now we have, in Myanmar, as many as over 150 races are recognized, in which around 53 races are in the Chin State. Now how to negotiate, how to handle this, the issue of identity for these numerous 53 races in the Chin State alone. Now, concerted effort has been made to put or to categorize these linguistic groups under different ethnic groups, as many as, if I am not wrong, under 9 groups, and in which some of the groups were, pulled in and other forced out. So negotiation is still going on. Some of them were bitterly unsatisfied with the kind of arrangement that was being made. For example, in the context of the Mara community in Myanmar, who fortunately are having strong autonomous logistical. In the Myanmar context, an effort has been made to put them under the Laimi group, which they feel that they do not actually belong to. So, when the government tries to categorize them under the Laimi group, and fact, the matter is that these particular concerned communities do not want to be under that group, and where do they fit in? There lies the problem. And therefore, there is a concerted effort is being made to create their own separate ethnic identity and also to be placed under a separate. Now what I'm trying to say is that in the Northeast and particularly in Mizoram, we have numerous ethnic communities on linguistic lines. For example, we have the Lusei tribes, we have the Mars, Paite, Lais, Maras, and so on, many tribes. And if I go back to the dawn of the 20th century, when the northeastern states saw, spread of political consciousness among the different ethnic tribes, the government of India wanted to address to the problem of flaring ethnic problems based on language, based on caste, based on religion, and so on. Now, in this context, our friend has made a passing reference on the Bodoloi, from Bobinat Bodoloi. The Bodoloi committee was dispatched to Mizoram under the aegis of the National Assembly, and accordingly, the 6th schedule to the Constitution of India was, implemented, whereby boy, in other words is Lai, and Lakher in other words is known as Mara. Boy Lakher Regional Council was created under the 6th schedule to the Constitution of India to address the problem faced by these communities. Now, when two communities were put together under the regional council, the Borderline Committee hoped that problems of these communities would be addressed. But unfortunately, it was not so. It was not to be so. Because the issue of the bone of political contention soon emerged in the form of the post of the chief executive member. These two communities could not come to terms together on who would be the chief executive member. So conflict arose, and very soon there was resentment from both the communities, and this led to the boycott of the regional council. And on seeing this problem, the government of India then again tried to solve the problem, and the regional council was ultimately trifurcated, and see, the Boy Lakher Regional Council was trifurcated into Mara Autonomous Council, Lais Autonomous Council, and out of the blue comes Chakma Autonomous Council. You see? 97. So, what is very visible out here is that when the government of India tried to put two communities together under one umbrella, then it was not feasible, it was not working. And therefore they reshaped they changed their model, and then ultimately trifurcated. So what I'm trying to say is, as of now, it appears that, though Professor Panay comes heavily on the this council, but I would say that they are working quite well. If you see the communities whose population is less than 50,000, you imagine not able to fill up one football stadium, are really performing quite well in terms of education, in terms of political aspirations, in terms of economy, and so on. Now, in the context of Myanmar, in the Chin state, there are more than 53 races. So, how to solve and how to address these issues? If under the Chin state, many tribes would try to, be the dominant tribe, okay, or would try to be the dominant force at the expense of the other. Now, to negotiate, to have a proper sort of political arrangement, I think the government of Myanmar needs to rethink as to how to solve or address the issues facing ethnic nationalities, particularly in this part of the hills. And we all know that one of the agenda of the Panglong Conference was to solve or to address the issues facing ethnic nationalities. Now, if this model, if the Indian model in the form of 6 schedules to the Indian Constitution, or in the form of district council, or granting districts to these communities, I think there will be a lot of difference in terms of their economy, in terms of their politics, etc. Because, let me just point out here, if you do a research and go to the Chin state, you will find in every household, one or the other member of their family is outside the state and are in Europe or in America or in Australia. So what are they doing? They are simply earning their living. But those people are, I would say, more often landing up in doing a kind of manual works, not professional kind of jobs. So you would find that there is no workforce left over there. You would find the young, the infirm, the old women. How about the youth force? They're uprooted. And if you look at their economy, you will find no agricultural activities going on there. The land is barren. The family would simply sustain themselves from the little financial support that their children send from abroad. So the picture is very, very bad. How to arrest this exodus? It is not because of the persecution by the military junta that these people left their place. It is because of other factors. See, for example, we have a lot of exodus from Africa, Europe. The reason was very different. In this case, in Myanmar, it's completely different. So, in India, autonomous district council works very well. They're doing a very, very good job. So, now, I think this thing can be transferred to our neighbors, where the exodus also can be arrested. The youth can be transformed by using Indian model. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this really, again, for a view that looked at the inside workings of such a relatively small federal state solution here in India, and also for the very positive evaluation, which I think will lead immediately to perhaps some questions and critical comments. We had it virtually institutionalized here, so I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, let's go right away to the debate.
To Robin, a couple of issues. It's not really a question, but just for clarification. So the number of groups within chain states 52 officially. And there's a trend that they're trying to reduce the number of ethnic races. And the total national races across the country is 135 officially. And regarding exodus of the Chin, I don't belong to the Chin state. I'm from the second region. Yeah, many of them are not necessarily political refugees, but they're economic migrants. But I will not go to the extent that all of them are economic migrants. And again, one other thing regarding schedule, I think I also believe that this should not necessarily in Myanmar, but even within the Northeast India, as I said in the morning, in the first session, if we could implement this system effectively, in the case of Manipur, for example, I think it's going to work better, and there should not be the question of what we call separate administration for the Nagas, the Kukis, and Métis. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the presentation by Dr. Landrin was very interesting and very instructive for most of us. Some of the concerns that you have flagged are familiar in other parts also to some extent. Say for instance language. I will give you the example of many people from South India settled in North Delhi. Now what is happening is that their children manage to somehow communicate in their respective languages, but they cannot write, they cannot read. Who knows what happens in the next generation? I think that is something that is going to happen to many of us. This is yes. I strongly believe languages, as you said, great is power. It must be preserved, including the small ones. At least at the primary level, it's possible and all that. But the dilemma comes, and when we have aspirations for higher education and not facilities, and this is something which is very important to discuss. Thank you very much for that. Peace at a price. That is also a very important point, because there is peace for a lot of immigrants who will be coming and all that. But here the problem is that you have suggested that should one try to see that all the Mizos living in the neighboring countries or states, if they could, but then there is a demand that they should be in one state. But the problem is that many of them do not speak the Mizo language. But this is a dilemma on the other hand, on the one hand. But do you think that this concern is inspired by what Israel to some extent is trying to do? That if many of these people, Jewish community were brought and could be brought from Russia, from Europe, and all that. Is it somewhat similar in terms of concern? And final small point. I also like the point about some of the innovative democratic federal practices here. I think at a time when we are debating federalism, we are almost exhausting all the knowledge that we have about federal practices, because we have been talking of Western and West Indian, sometimes Ethiopian and all that. But these are some of these issues that will help us innovate. And I think there is a need for innovation has come now. Even the concept of communitarian democracy, some of the indigenous groups in South America have also started to operate. I think some of these things will have to be revisited and talked about at some level or the other, so I must compliment you.
Okay, thank you. I will take some questions later, but in the first round, maybe Larry starts directly. Robin, and then you can talk about the corridor issue.
So the second point that you raised about bringing the ethnic Mizo group together, although they speak different languages, like the Mizo, or they don't call it a Mizo anymore, they call it Zo. because Mizo, they believe, is a little bit, they identify with the state Mizoram. So in order to be a little bit more liberal in that sense, they started using the term Zo. Now, therefore, it's called Zoro. And I don't think it is like it is similar to the Jewish people going back to Israel from different parts of the countries in the world. But this is, I believe, I have interviewed and I have spoken to many of these people, and some of them have, I would say that for instance, Mizo staying in Myanmar, I would say that they are very nostalgic about Mizoram because they are also ill-treated over there. You know, that is what I feel. I don't know whether it is true or not. You know, but they have the they're not treated very well by the government, maybe, or the military regime, for example. But another aspect is that those MNF undergrounds who came overground in the event of the peace accord, you know, they still aspire for Mizoram independence. I've spoken to them on this, you know, and I said, see, when you're talking about Zoro, it's going to involve boundary expansion, etc., etc., territorial expansion, which is going to be very, very difficult. But they said they are still hoping, you know, that the Mizo state will become one of these days independent from India or from Myanmar or from Bangladesh, etc. So it's those ex-underground personnel, I think, who have started all this, or maybe, I don't know. There may be some other forces also, but up to the point where I have discussed this with people who are involved in this, I believe that most of them who are not happy with the peace accord are involved in this.
There was, I think, another remark about internal democracy, Young Mizo, and I think you were referring to Young Mizo Association. I think you had a question also about the communitarian, which is the Young Mizo Association, I think. So these elements which are so strong here in Mizo society. I don't know whether you still want to comment on this, because I think, for me, one of the most stunning things when I came first time to Mizoram was the presence of the YMA. And I said, to me, this really appears the power center in this kind of society.
I suppose, like from the present state of what the Central Young Mizo Association are doing in order to since there has been a lot of rethinking about the abolition of chieftainships and the good practices of the chief. Okay, I'm sure that it could be later on translated into some of the objectives that the Young Mizo Association would adopt later on, because the discussions are going on, you know. So I can't say which one and which part of it, but then, like, if you look into the chieftainship of you will find that it's very democratic, because a murder becomes a neutralized. It is able to enter the chief's compound before he is caught by the village people. You know, he's no longer a murderer. You know, there are certain things, you know, which is connected with our notion, our concept of things also. Not basically Christianity also, because sometimes before the legal system is instituted properly here, like when somebody murders something, it's a practice that they forgive that murderer. You know, that forgiveness. No, it's not only Christian in the forgiveness is not only Christianity, but it could have been how that same culprit was neutralized during the time of the chief.
Regarding that,
Just have to say the second one.
okay. No, regarding that point, the chief lynch.
We can discuss in the second round.
All right.
Regarding the figures, there will be from my source it's 150, around about 150 races, recognized races, but I don't know how far, but 53 I think races in the Chin state. That's my source. Just to add to one point, sir, with your permission, I would like to add one thing which comes to my mind is, in the Chin state, there are people, ethnic communities who are divided and dispersed within different townships. That appears to be something that has been going on for quite some time in order to belittle the ethnic aspirations of our community. For example, the Maras are divided in Matupi Township, Paleto Township, and Hatang Township. See? So nowhere they have their own majority. Now, in the supposed new political arrangement, where do they figure out? And not only it's the case of the Mara, there are also many other ethnic tribes. So these also needs to be addressed when.
Okay, so I had this question about Dr. Kim Jong-un's question. It's a very interesting and a very big question. And at a general level, you can say that yes, it depends. The answer will be a mixed response depending on who you're asking, which population group or which region, which state within the Northeast. But at a general level, I would say, of course, there are a lot of expectation and anticipation, and people are looking forward. I mean, to give you a very brief, a very quick, very small example is that the place I come from, that is in Apara, Rural. So if you take like 2-3 hours drive, there is a place called Lidu, and which there is a board there which says that this is the beginning of the Stilwell Road, and it shows the kilometer distance, like this many kilometer to Yunnan, this many kilometer to Yangon, this is the distance. So people from my town often goes for picnic and all as a park, and people, it's almost like ritualistic, people take pictures in front of that board. It's like your aspiration to become part of a larger region. So those things are very much there, okay? But the main apprehension which has been the experience of many of the people also is the apprehension that once we're talking about converting these frontiers into headquarters now through this highway and all that, where will the headquarters be based in? Will it be in Guwahati, Aizawl, Imphal, or will it continue to be in Delhi, Calcutta and Mumbai? So this is one of the main concerns that we have. That that the stakeholders will be taken into consultation or not, or whether the highway will become more like a flyover, right? That the development will bypass. The actual headquarters will be in different places, and the development actually will bypass the region. It will be connected nonetheless, but the development will bypass. So that is the way it is concerned. Like when we talk about look east or act east, the question is where you are looking from. Are you looking from Delhi? Like we are looking east, but are you looking from Delhi? That is the question. Are you looking from the region, or are you looking from Delhi? That is one concern. And one example I'll give you, like recently must have known this. Again, the controversial as until that we don't know whether the army operation happened or not, but there was a news at one point that Indian army has crossed over to Myanmar and there was army operation, and the Minister of Defense has actually gave a press statement on that. And that time the chief ministers of Nagaland and Manipur were completely taken off guard. They had no clue about this operation. So these are many indications that shows that there are some trust deficit there at policy level. So how do you bypass when you talk about Northeast as a region? So right, so these are the issues that are there. But at general level, there are a lot of expectations and people are anticipating that this will bring in change. And one quick point I missed while responding to Man's question, the GST bill, it's important to remember is that, you see this bill was placed in the Rajya Sabha, which is Council of States, which is seen as the more of the federal branch of the two houses. It's just placed as a money bill, so that Rajya Sabha cannot do any modification, right? So this was a curious, because government was in the minority in the Rajya Sabha, they wanted to curtail that space. So GST bill was placed as a money bill in Rajya Sabha and passed in Lok Sabha. That is again seen as a way to bypass the federal structure. So that is the GST and the federalism connection.
Two more questions right now, or comments. Ambassador Bhatia and Professor Patnaik, there's somebody else.
Thank you, fascinating panel, many questions, but let me just pose two, maybe a slight small comment also. I think the point that you made about Zoro has of course very interesting parallels with this sort of so-called Naga political issue. But in fact, the interesting thing is that despite a much greater linguistic kind of cohesiveness, the demand for Zoro has not so far taken place. It's very common when you drive around in Mizoram that Mizos tell you that Ri Lake is the largest lake of the Mizos, but it's not in Mizoram. So, the concept, an idea of a land and a people exists, but interestingly, it has not been a serious political issue until now, though it has been in the case of Nagaland. So, just a side question, why? But perhaps more interesting to me is the issue of language. Here you have a case where, by and large, you have very kindred, very close languages. In fact, if you extend the Mizo languages to the Kuki languages, there, you could also unify the Kukis under the Kuki-Mizo-Chin group. But interestingly, Mizoram has remained satisfied with the borders that it has. There is not such a great desire for Nagaland. But also, now reverse the phenomenon, you have the case in Nagaland where you have several Naga tribes speaking very disparate languages. Of course, a common Naga culture, I think that such a thing does exist, but has been extremely successful. In the case of the Mizos, you had the Rantes and others who were able to suppress their language for Mizo. In the case of Nagaland, you have disparate languages, nevertheless they managed to come together to form a very strong Naga identity, which, as I said in the morning, has even spilled over the state of Nagaland. What observations do you have about language and identity in the Naga case in contrast and comparison to the Mizo case? And the second question for Dr. Robin, I'm just quite curious about one point. I think, the sixth schedule idea is a very interesting idea. I do hope that some of our, Myanmar colleagues take this idea back. But sort of puzzle that I have, if the idea of cohabitation of two tribes, the Pori and the Nakir, or the Lai and the Mara, was difficult in one autonomous district council, how do you envisage that 53 would manage to cohabit and coexist and work harmoniously in GST?
Before we get Dr. Patnaik,
this is with regard to P. Dickey's comment on the nostalgia about the Mizo chief system. Actually, as early as 1946, when the Mizo Union was created, a counter organization was created, that is UMFO, consisting of the earlier Mizo chiefs. And UMFO could not make a dent on the Mizo society, the Mizo society. And since then, the matter was settled politically, and the chiefs lost, for the simple reason that the commoners were in majority and wanted Mizoram to have a democratization process. Because, in my opinion, the chieftain system is a kind of cruel feudalism. And in 21st century democratic societies, I don't think this kind of cruel feudalism would in any way figure and will be successful.
I just want to comment on Professor Patnaik's remark. I'm not saying that the chief should be reinstated. I'm not meaning that. But the good practices of chieftainship at that point of time in our traditional community, I thought should be taken into consideration when you think about all this new change, new things coming on. Because there are many good practices within the chiefs. So I'm just stating that, and there are people who even say that if the chieftainship have been had been preserved, our society, our younger generation would not have been so confused as this, because we were like our generation, our parents' generation is not, it's just very recent, in the recent past only, and they were under the chief also, so they thought that maybe that binding factor is something which we need, even as a very small community. There's a lot of discussion on this, so I'm just saying that. And a question about the Zoro not being a really big political force as yet. I have also asked them whether they're going to go use military force or whatever. But they're saying no. It's going to be for a while, I guess, propagandist in nature, I think. But they are quite active, but they are not secessionist in nature as of now, because it involves a lot of things. And then to the Mizo and the Naga identity, I think we also, like the Naga, we have our identity intact in a similar way, in spite of the fact that the Nagas speak a lot of different dialects, different languages. But then, but as far as the social structure is concerned, I think we are better than them. And then, because we are better than them, because she's my niece. I'm related. I'm also part from Naga, And I
respect better. In which respect precisely?
Huh?
In which respect precisely?
She's my first, a better Mizoram. Oh, that is better organized socially, That's what I feel, because we speak only one language, and then we communicate, and that's and sometimes it's a disadvantage for us also, because we don't want to learn any other languages also at the same time. And then I think we don't suppress other languages from emerging, really, but they are the ones, like for example, the Raga speakers are the ones who stop speaking, and then the Mar in Mizoram are the ones who stop speaking. Now let me give you an example. I'm a linguist basically. I had formulated scripts for Matupui and Halkhan. And they came to me and sat with them for weeks and then formulated scripts for them so that they can write and study their own language and also perhaps translate the Bible. Then when they took home those scripts, all of them said, no, we don't want our own script, we want to use Mizo. So that's the secret.
Mizo script as such?
No, we are using the Roman script.
Solution. Yeah, the 52 races, huge, and definitely there will be a problem, but now it has been scaled, narrowed down to 9 groups, because from 53 to 9 groups, because many of the tribes speaking mutually intelligible languages, so they are not really so different. So based on that, they have been categorized into the different groups. Okay. So in Mizoram we have three autonomous council, Lao Autonomous Chikmar Autonomous Council and Chakma Autonomous Council is going quite well. For example, if they have 9 district councils, that is well fine. I see no reason why it won't work there. Yeah. 9 groups. Yeah, that's what.